Hey, happy Friday again, part 2. What's going on, everybody? If you're here, hit that like button. Hit the like button, tag anybody, share this with someone that you think may find it interesting. Shout out to you also for being back for a second time. Totally unplanned, totally unscripted, but we are back. So if you were with me earlier today, I kind of had to log off right at the time I wanted to open up call lines because I remember I had a meeting that I had to get to. So I was like, let me go do that meeting real quick and I'll come back and give y'all a chance to weigh in on the topic at hand. Now, just to bring you guys up to speed, really what we were going over was there was a recent interview that took place on Fox News. It was like a local channel. I think it was Fox News in Houston chapter or whatever. It was about 6 or 7 minutes, but they brought in 2 women to basically talk about the Passport Bros. So in my previous live, I break down that whole interview, my thoughts on it. Check it out if you have not already. I'll give you guys kind of full insight into what this call is going to be about. But just to briefly summarize it, at the end of the day, they were bringing on women to basically talk about the passport bros and the different issue associated with it. And I personally think it was just all cap, quite frankly, because a lot of the different critiques that were being raised are things that women themselves are doing, have done, or other men are doing. And so I think it was just all cap. And personally, the optics, I think, were a little bad. You had two modern women on there, which no shade in them. They've chosen to live how they want to live. But you had two Black women on there who are, from what I can tell, y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but what I can tell, two Black single women, baby mamas. One's OnlyFans model, another one, I think she's like a communication specialist or something. But they're modern women. They're modern women by all accounts, just based upon the different things that they said about being upwardly mobile, having good educations. They're modern women. So they brought on modern women to essentially try to shame what the passport bros were doing. And I'm like, to me, that was just further free promotion for the passport bros, because it's just like, you're not going to bring on the women that these men are trying to escape from to try to convince them to do otherwise. Like, you're not. If anything, you just built a case as to why they should go abroad to find women that they think are more traditionally minded or who are more in line with what they want. So I don't know if that was like a failed attempt to try to shame the passport bros, but if it was a total failure in my opinion. Now, I do understand their concern about some people out there using this movement as a way to try to push toxic rhetoric about Black women. I do identify with that, and I agree with that on some level. Also, the issue with that is that's been going on for like decades towards Black men, and it's been unchecked. So now all of a sudden it's like we want to try to be all about the Black community and try to have all these codes and have all these ethics when it comes to Black women being, thrown under the bus, but we don't want to apply it when it's Black men. And so that's where a lot of arguments to me, I think, fall flat. And also it's like, I personally think as women, there's so much stuff that we got to do personally, accountability that could happen personally, on the community level, on just the sister level. Like, I think there's so much that we could focus on before we got to get too caught up with what the men are doing. But that's a whole other topic discussion in general. So yes, so that's what we did earlier. And like I said, right when I finished and was about to go into the parts of the calls, I had to hop off really quick because I had a meeting I didn't want to miss, but I told you guys I was going to come back and have a few minutes to open up the call lines if anybody wanted to weigh in. If you agree with my perspective, if you don't agree, or if you have something else to add on the whole topic in general, y'all let me know. So that's what we're here to do. Shout out to you guys in the chat room. Said saw you on Daily Wrap Up Crew and had to check out your channel. Thanks for being here, D. Good to have you. Daily Wrap Up Crew, yeah, they're fun. I was on there yesterday. If you didn't see it, go check out that conversation too. It's good. I had to log off about 2 hours in. I'm not sure how long the whole live was. Totally. Oops, my bad. Totally. But yeah, check it out if you haven't already. Okay, so I'm trying to think if I got anything else. That's pretty much it. So that was pretty much like the whole topic of the live that I did previously. Again, if you missed it, check it out. Now what I'm going to do is if anybody has anything that they want to weigh in regarding this topic, let's try to stay on topic here, right? We're going to be talking about the passport bros, just the whole controversy behind it, and whether or not you agree with my position if you had a chance to check out my live I had an hour ago, or if you just have anything else related to this whole topic that you want to address. So I'm going to drop the call link. If anyone wants to hop in. Also, guys, as always, like the show. If you like what this is about, be sure to show support. You can find me on Cash App or Venmo Sade. And also super chats. As always, I will be sure to acknowledge and read out super chats. Support your favorite content creators, y'all. Okay, let me drop this up here. And okay. So if you guys have, like I said, if you guys have any feedback, or you just want to share your thoughts. I'm curious what you guys have to say on this whole topic. They have been, these quote unquote leftover men that nobody cares about have been the hot topic of discussion over the last couple of weeks. So that's why I'm like, okay, let's see what other people got to say about it. If anything at all. If anything at all. So I've dropped the call line. if anyone wants to hop on. And yeah, guys, be sure to check out my live. I kind of break it down. It's about an hour or so previously. Be sure to break that down and then check out my interview I'm going to be doing with Daily Wrap Up Crew. That should be fun. And as always, I have other interviews coming up, but I don't want to share too much. Maybe I'll let the members know. I need to tap in with the members. Plan a members only live. Those are fun, guys. If you want, I try to do members only live at least once a month or whatever for those who are actually subscribed to the channel. I really like those because that's a time where I can have like more of a one-on-one discussion. Sometimes these lives, depending upon like the day, can get to where, you have a couple of hundred people on. So it's like, I can't always get all the comments, or I can't always have everybody calling in. So the members only lives are great because they're usually very small. We can have everybody on the panel and we just talk about different things. I get a chance to see what exactly they want, if there's any feedback they have, if there's any particular questions. So that's a time where I get to get a lot more personal with the members, and I get to get, more feedback. So I always enjoy those. So if you want, guys, you can become a channel member for as little as $4.99. Super easy. And you'll have access to that content. So yeah. Says go and exit this live to see the prior you're referring to and need to content to the interview. Okay. Question. How many of you guys have that in the chat? Y'all let me know how many of you guys actually saw the interview. Or if I'm just like, if I'm talking to myself here. Because it is kind of hard, I guess, to know without the context of the interview. So I just want to get a sense of how many of you guys actually saw it, because the whole topic was for me to do a follow-up of that. Y'all let me know down in the comments. Y'all let me know down in the comment section. But guys, I'm here chilling. I wanted to make sure that I created time for you guys to chat. If none of you guys want to chat on this topic, that's totally fine too. And I can go throughout my merry way and start my weekend. Okay, so you guys saw. Okay, so we have at least 2 in the chat who have seen it. For those of you guys who haven't, you can go back and catch my replay. I literally did it like a little over an hour ago. You caught some highlights. Yeah, it was like a really short interview. I think it was only like 6 or 7 minutes totally. So I also found it quite interesting how like that particular channel, I think it's Fox 26, yes. They've had Dennis Sperling on before, if I'm not mistaken. Because actually, when I was on that channel, I saw just a few weeks ago, they did some form of interview with him. So I was surprised that they did that and they didn't bring him on for the Password Bros. I'm like, why not? Like, why would you not do that? Maybe they'll do a separate interview. A separate interview where it's just him and the interviewer and he can give his perspective. But it was kind of random to me that they had these 2 women. I don't really know who they are or why they chose them, but it was like, why wouldn't you have him talk about the Passport Bros, or at least be in that discussion, since he's literally been on the channel before and obviously is a large influencer on the space. That was kind of strange to me. What you got, Passport OG?
Oh, thanks for having me on. It is a pleasure to finally meet you in the cyberspace, if you call it.
Yeah.
You're doing good work. I like your videos.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, I think a lot of this Austen Holleman stuff is kind of overblown. I mean, in this side, we're always kind of looking for like, oh, what's going on? But I mean, a guy said something, and then some lady who wanted some clout kind of pushed back on her so he could get some clout, and now people are walking around scared. But I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that interview was an interview for people who are watching like terrestrial TV. And how much terrestrial TV do you watch?
I'm having a hard time hearing you now, Passport OG. Looks like
okay. Let me check my audio.
I can hear you now.
So I was going to say is, how much terrestrial television are you watching? Like
you said terrestrial television.
I mean, if you're watching, that's terrestrial television for basically moms with kids. And so that interview is for people that are watching, TV. I mean, I don't watch TV. So that was to make moms at home with their kids feel good about themselves. So it is what it is. They don't go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you kind of hit the nail on the head, or, I'm seeing comments in here too that are alluding to it. It's like they didn't in the discussion, granted it was really short, so maybe they weren't trying to, but it's like they didn't actually address any of the issues I think that the passport bros have raised. I heard
Well,
a
of course,
lot of screaming, and literally
of course
towards
they
the
didn't.
end, yeah, you saw her towards the end where she's just like, "Oh, this is such a shame. This is such a shame." So it was like
Well, I
literally
mean,
shaming.
think about Kevin Samuels. Kevin Samuels was a thing for a good 2 years. How many people in traditional media brought him on in good faith to see what he's talking about? Nobody wanted to hear the truth. They're not trying to hear the truth.
Mm-hmm.
They're not trying to hear that.
Yeah.
They want to hear the Derek Jackson. They want the feel good.
You know, and I have to wonder if that's perhaps why they didn't bring Dennis Sperling on.
Oh gosh, come on now. You know that.
Because I'm like, if he would have been on that panel, it's like, first of all, he's a lawyer, so he knows how to argue a point professionally. Second of all, it's like,
and for a lawyer, he has zero. He will come at you. So
yes,
they're not ready. They're not ready for Uncle D, man. They're not
that
ready for that.
Be fair. That's true. That would not have been a fair panel. And I was like, I don't have no against the woman that they brought in the panel. It just seemed like I was trying to figure out what was the point of this, because if they were trying to shame men, that they did a horrible job getting OnlyFans model, first off, and then two women from what I understand who are unmarried, single mothers. Like that's what men who are grabbing their passports are trying to get away from. So like if the whole point was to try to shame them by using modern women or using women who are taking a lifestyle, was like that is bad optics. So then what was the point of the interview? Like I don't
it's feel good fluff. It's feel good fluff for their audience. That's what that's about.
It was some fluff. I didn't get the feel good, but it definitely was some fluff.
Oh, you don't see the feel good? You don't see the feel good in that? Come on. What does Derek Jackson do every time he gets on stage? He talks about how if you don't love her, leave her alone, all that stuff. It's fluff. That's feel good stuff for those ladies at home that don't have their man and they want to feel bad about some guys who basically most of us don't have kids when we leave.
Yeah.
So why do you even care? These aren't the men that are, spitting out the kids. These are the other guys.
That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like, why so much smoke about the leftover men? About the men that you supposedly don't care about, the ones that are not cool, the ones that wasn't getting played, the popular women in school, like those dudes.
That's right.
You know what? I know personally those dudes. I was a guy I was talking to literally a couple of days ago, early this week, who was like, just got married to a woman in Thailand, moving himself to Thailand, and living a great life. And it's like he probably wouldn't get zero to no play out here in the States, truth be told. But he's retired, has a really, really nice income, and met a beautiful woman over there who's nice and submissive. And it's like, yeah, go live your life. Why not? If
you got to be ready to compete, man. I mean, it's a global marketplace. There's a reason why we don't go to Kmart anymore.
It's global.
We don't go to Kmart. We don't go to Richway. Like those, they're not there anymore. We don't go to Sears because they lost. So you gotta evolve and compete.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if just put it this way, if Black American women were the finest women on the planet, you would have European dudes flying over to America to date them. That's the way it works. That's why they're flying down to Brazil, because they want the finest Black women on the planet, and that's where they think they are. And if they were in America, they'd be flying to America. That's just competition.
Well, and correct if I'm wrong here, but I always thought the primary issue had more to do with the attitude and the overall lifestyle than it was just the looks. Now, I do know there's a lot of women in America who are just unhealthy and overweight, so that is a component. But I thought the biggest drive was just simply women who don't want to have families and don't want to submit, which is why it's, to me, so perplexing that you say this in one end, but then are mad when men leave. Like, are they supposed to just stay here and wait for you to maybe one day decide to be a wife, but then never do so? Like, I mean, what's the alternative? What's the alternative?
Yeah, and you have to factor in what happens when these marriages dissolve. Even if you're dealing with someone who's not cooperative and you get into a courtroom battling over kids, it's a nightmare. And so, you get enough decent guys try to do the right thing, and they look at, I want to be as diplomatic as I can. Someone who maybe could stand to lose some weight, who has a terrible attitude, who's fighting to not let you see your kids out of spite, and you have to pay. Yeah, you only have to see that from the third person 2 or 3 times to say, I'm not doing that. I'll do something else, but it's not going to be that. And here you have it. You have passport bros saying, if I'll MGTOW and I'll be by myself, or I'll just save up money and go out of the country every so often, or consider relocating.
At this point, especially if you may have a job or something where you're remote, or you can do your business remote. It's like, why not? That would make the most sense.
Well, going back to like the interview, right? Mm-hmm. Imagine if you're looking across in the divorce court from either one of those two women, right? Do you think that there's anything pleasant about that court experience?
What you said, imagine if you're sitting across those two women in what?
In divorce court or in the child custody court. Like those two women, those two ladies that were on that interview. Mm-hmm. Do you think there's anything pleasant about that?
Divorce court is hell. From at least from what I've heard, it is hell.
Especially if you're with someone who's in there for spite. Oh. So, that's what the attitude comes in, right? Where if someone has the values and say, I want to just do the best for the kids, then you probably can, mediate it out of court and just come to a situation. But if it goes all the way to court, there's some spite there. And that spite's going to end up in somebody having to pay, usually the man. So
the man, and then ultimately the kid. Because anytime the kid becomes a pawn, I hate hearing stories like this because it always ends up backfiring in some way, shape, or form. And the kid is the one that ends up losing out and ending up with issues with their mama, or don't like Black women, or has to go to therapy, or the kid. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole other discussion. And I don't pretend to know the laws great in this land, let alone in other nations. But I imagine that in other nations, it's not to the level. I think I heard it's like in Australia or something, you can get divorced in like 7 days. Don't quote me on this. But
I can't speak for. It depends a lot on like how much I guess I could say the feminism, feminism. I don't know how to say the word on it, but it depends on how much control it has in the courts. If you move to more traditional societies where there's just less to no safety net. You get married on the premise that this person is your social safety net.
That's true.
And so if you know that you're going to get a payday to leave, then it just works against A, guys getting married, and B, women staying. So So for a lot of countries, the more traditional you get to pack your things up and leave, and some countries the men get custody of their kids by default.
I've heard of that. And that's another thing too. It's like, because in some of these other countries, it's not like you leave and then you can go on governmental assistance.
No.
It's like you leave, you're about to be on the street.
You leave and you go back to your mama's house.
That's to your mom, right? If they're alive or available or willing to take you in, if you haven't brought shame on the family for some reason, or you're, like I said, legitimately on the street.
Pretty much.
So
you have to move in with your friends, your sister, or somebody. That's right. Mm-hmm. And I think the West has kind of gone too far the other way. So now you have, guys that pretty much are heading in the right direction. And they're saying, hey, man, what Austen Holleman's videos look pretty tempting. Mm-hmm. And that's why they're upset. That's why they're upset. Because the secondary guys are saying, you know what? There are better options. And they don't want that.
I mean, I'm on the process of it, but I've had a chance to talk to a few Gen Z guys just about their experience in college and different things. And it's so crazy to me, especially when I see young black men who are like, really attractive, tall, working hard in these really good schools, and it's like they're not getting any play. And I'm like, what is going on? But it speaks to this culture. And when I look at them and I think, okay, they would be the prototype. They'd be the prime example of someone in maybe 5-10 years once they're done with school, got themselves in a good job, a little more established, would go abroad, and then you're gonna have women go back and be complaining and like, oh, well, they went here, they went there, and it's like, well, where were you in college? Like, where were you when they were? And I'm talking to some of them, and just like, oh yeah, in college, if you're a straight man, especially if you're a straight black male, you are the enemy. There is no fluidity for you. There is no intersectionality. Whatever intersectionality you have is always evil. It's always wrong. Like under that paradigm.
Oh, you're a paycheck waiting to happen.
Yeah.
if you're doing everything right, and you mess around and have a child and get married to someone, they can cut your knees out from under you, and you're starting back over at 35 with half your income, and you're fighting to see your kids. So enough people have seen that.
Yeah,
enough people have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had something I was about to say. It just jumped my mind. God dog it. But I appreciate just having the discourse about this conversation in more of a holistic way. The shaming is an old tactic that works in a community. We don't have a community anymore. Community, when you say, Sade, you grew up in the church or no?
Yes.
So you remember like the older women in the church would get on the younger girls about how long their dresses were or how much they were showing.
Yeah.
That's gone. That's gone.
Completely gone. So much is gone. And I'm still involved. I'm still involved in church now, but I'll notice there's a big difference between, especially those, like a big mega church with the smoke. You come in and there's a smoke machine.
Yeah,
but there's so much to unpack there. I think one of the areas where it's like I could agree with their point, but it goes back to what you're saying of there not being consistency and there not really being a community, was when they were saying, I do, and I have seen certain individuals or at least certain accounts use this whole movement as a reason for them to just promote toxic rhetoric about Black women or hide the fact that they just have a snow bunny fetish. Like because there's some Black men out there or whatever who they just are legitimately like, look, I just like Asian women, they just like white women. Okay, whatever. But like I've seen those accounts or those things where it's just like, bruh, we know you have a snow bunny fetish and you're just using this as a reason now to try to justify it. So that's out there. But I think what I was mentioning before, it's like, okay, if you want to talk about those toxic elements of the movement, then we have to be consistent when we see it among the women. And that's where I think that argument also falls flat, because it's just not consistent.
Yeah, good point.
So,
somebody. Oh, more guys.
We got 17. Okay, I don't know what's going on there, but that's there's a lot going on. Is he in a shop?
No, he's in an auto shop.
Yeah, we might. Okay. I don't know how that's going to work in an auto shop. Are you there?
Yeah. He'd have to get into like an isolated area.
You might need to, if you can get in a more quiet area, because there was a lot of feedback we heard when you were in the shop. So I might need you to get in the if you're in a more quiet area, or let me see. Okay, what's going on?
You were not joking. You said you'd come back.
Oh yeah, I because I was like, I wanted to have time for people to call in, because I had intended to do that, but I just had forgot that, like.
So do the passport, but they wouldn't really have a reason to talk to you. But one of the things I tried to do with the Passport Bros when this thing was first popping off, and I saw Holleman kind of rising up and gaining some popularity, was I would pop in on his live streams and I would say, hey, guys, do this, and this. And because, and I see Passport OG up here. So really what they have to do is link up with the older men who've been doing it for 15, 20 years and say, look, because see, the older men who are already settled, we already got the women that we want. We got the wives that we want, the girlfriends that we want. And some guys are not married, but they get a steady girlfriend. Yeah. Right. They'll have them for like 4, 5, 6 years, and then they'll eventually marry them, or they just kind of switch up girlfriends. Nothing wrong with that. And one of the things that I would say that, and I hadn't talked to him, I know he's getting a lot of advice. So if he's getting all this advice right about now, he's not going to be able to take it all in, because he's already had the problems and everything. But he really needs to just get if he's going to do it, he just needs to deal with one woman, and he needs to see that woman particularly moving around the country that he's in. And he needs to be able to, he can go to other countries, but they need to see him with a steady woman. So that way they don't have this idea that he's just running around, being this sex tourist. Even though he's not doing it, it doesn't really matter. But that would alleviate a lot of those problems. Because when I see the older gentlemen, they're settled in with women. They got their apartments. The woman is there. They bring them on. Like almost every guy you've seen. Who's that gentleman that pops up from Colombia? Andre and Andrea, right? Andre and Andrea.
I'm not sure.
Okay,
Is
I
that
think,
Andre and Andrea crossing borders?
Yeah, crossing borders. He's been on a platform multiple times. That's matter of fact, it was your platform where I first met him. But I call it I when they do their shows I call so it's guys like him, like me. I don't really do the passport thing. My thing is something completely different. I just try to advise young men how to move around, and then I pop in and kind of talk about other things. But
yeah,
they really need to link in with men who are already in these countries, or at least somebody who's been doing it for 15, 20 years and doing it safely without any issues or problems, because it doesn't take much to get kicked out of these countries. It really doesn't take much.
Oh, yeah.
He's seeing that now.
And that makes sense, you're saying, because it's like, really, especially if you're going into one of these more traditional, it's like you do want to understand the culture. You don't want to just come in as like this kind of a random outsider. Like, you kind of want to play the politics and make sure you're being respectful and honoring to the people and have the right connection, so you don't become an easy target.
Yeah, I learned most of my the decorum and manners in the military, because they always give you you're a United States American, you're military, you're representing the country. Then on top of that, I'm black, so I got a whole lot of things to be concerned about.
Yeah,
and I'm telling you, it's very easy to get kicked out of these countries. I've seen dudes get kicked out of countries just for insulting the people, just making fun of them just for a little bit, not even doing anything wrong, really, not breaking the law, not doing anything super egregious. Just there was a group of Americans kind of making fun of the when we were in Qatar, and not when I was there, but after I left, it happened, and they got them out real quick. They caught it on film. The thing went viral. Next thing you know, boom, they're gone. Now, people break the law, they're gone too. But I mean, any offense is what I'm saying.
Okay, that makes sense.
Also, high level, it doesn't matter. You're gone.
Well, I don't want to push back on it too much. Oh, Scooter, sorry. I don't want to push back on that too much, but there's room for indiscretion, but you don't document that. You can't document that part of it. That part of it's got to stay off camera. There's that part of it, and the other part is you got to understand like which ladies are for that and which ladies are not. And so if you understand, like, you go to certain places and that is what that is, you do what all the other foreigners do. Just follow the social rules. But if you treat an upper class lady in a way that she's like a bar girl or something like that, that can get you in trouble. So, you just got to read the tea leaves, talk to some of the guys and say, oh, you want to go have a good time, go here, go here, go here. And, turn the camera off. Or you could document it until you start doing the other stuff. And then that's your personal business. Because I can tell you this much. These white boys over here, shoot. These white boys over here, man.
Where are you? Where?
I'm in Japan.
Okay. Yeah.
These white boys get down over here. Hell, these Japanese dudes do.
White men have a lot more latitude to move around and do certain things that everybody else can't do, though. That's everywhere. Well,
I would, in a way, but I know dudes here that they get it in. You just got to know how to get it in. That's all.
And it sounds like, there are obviously different motives. You have some who go around and they just kind of want to, I guess, explore and sow the royal oats, for lack of a better term. And then you have some who actually are actually looking for wives, which I'm probably leaning more towards that direction. Like, I'm just because of what I'm about, my How to Be Wife series, like, I'm never going to promote women going around being that Tatiana. But it does sound like there's men are going abroad for different reasons. There's probably some too who are just going abroad because they don't want to be in the US anymore, right? Like, it's just toxic out here, better cost of living, better lifestyle. So it's like the passport bros, from what I understand, is not a monolith. What's going on, Edward?
Oh my gosh, Edward's in the chat. Oh my gosh, what's up, Edward? What's up, man?
Yeah, hey, how are you all doing?
Yeah, so what you got?
All right.
I'm gonna save like the rants and the not rage quitting on my channel, but I will say this, because you got really a solid audience. The thing that really disappoints me about this conversation, not the conversation we're having now, but I'm talking about the general conversation around it, is, first of all, it's really nobody's business what black men are doing.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy because, like, for example, let me lay out some facts. Fact number one, black women have more passports than black men. Fact number 2.
Okay.
Black women travel more than black men. Fact, I won't say this is a fact, but this is a very strong opinion, and I dare somebody prove that I'm lying. Black women sex tour a lot more than black men. And to put evidence, I'm not even going to put like Girls Trip or How Stella Got Her Groove Back. I'm not going to put that on table because that's entertainment. There's a book, and I forget the book. Dennis Sperling has gone over this book. I knew about this book before. It's called A Pursuit of Happiness, and then it's like a subtitle. And this book was written, I'm in North Carolina. This book was written by Duke University Press. This book was written by a black woman, an African-American woman. This book is actually a feminist studies book because it tries to justify it. This is a story, so they actually tell the truth. And then they justify it with intersectionality. God. You know, huh?
I'm listening. I'm just like, oh gosh.
Okay, so the typical, yeah, because I know how I can be. I can be like a freight train. So the typical, you know, I couldn't find the Oprah stuff, the talk show stuff. I can't find no man, these men are this is this. So it tells the story of a black woman and other black women going down there to particularly Jamaica. And literally their families were getting upset about them leaving because this is how much time and money they were spending down there. Like it literally became a problem. Now these are like what BGS would call 92. So upperly mobile, you know, making it corporate, you know, black women. And it literally got to, I mean, Dennis Sperling has literally read pages out of this book. And the reality is, and I could talk about things like Mocha Fest, Urban Escapes. I promise you a lot of what Tom Joyner and Michael Baisden, a lot of these cruises that'll go to these locations, there is like, it is a whole infrastructure. And see, the thing about it is, one of the ways that I'm going to defend Passport Bros is it's like, you know what? I'm about to snitch. I'm about to tell everybody's being told on, like at this point. And because the reality is, I would argue that black men actually have a reputation of not being good tricks. That they have African-American men, because African-American men, number one, have a culture of not wanting to pay because of the stigma that has in the United States. When I say not wanting to pay, I don't mean like, you know, saying you will, you won't. What I'm saying is they have this thing, but one, they want to convert a chick, like turn the chick from paying to, you know, not paying. I'll just hang with me and just hang with me, right? And so a lot of women that are actually in that game don't even like dealing with African-American men in that way in a lot of these places. Now, my reference field, I was in a couple of different countries, but the Philippines, I was there the longest for like, you know, 6-7 months. And so that's out there. Now, they don't deal with a lot of African-Americans that are not in the military enough, but that's a reputation out there. So the people that are being like framed as the ones that are really doing the prostitution the most, it's very few. Like, for instance, Brazil has 70,000 Americans at any given time in that country. Black men are a very small percentage of what that is. You know where black people are? Accra, Ghana, which is where we're most represented. So my point is to land the plane. And by the way, everybody having this conversation, like the people that can actually speak on it, like your pro-blacks and stuff like that, they know what I'm saying is true. They're actively leaving this information out because in the eyes of everybody, they see this as a direct attack and a direct threat to the black community. They see this more as a threat to black community and white supremacy. Because if you create a domino effect where the men start leaving, this is where Austen is a problem. Austen is a 23-year-old young man that if you look at him, most black women and most black men would say, do you think that guy could get women in the United States? Most people looking at that picture would probably answer yes. And so for him to travel, it completely knocks out this idea of what people are saying. So the purpose of them saying that black men are weak, they can't get women here, you know, all the stuff that they say about Passport Bros, right? That's actually not for Passport Bros to stop being Passport Bros. That's for black men that don't know to be what they call it, imprinted with what these guys are. Say, no, I don't want to be a part of that. I don't want to even travel because I don't want to be labeled this, that, and the third by my community. It's actually really insidious what they're doing when you really understand it. And so they're trying to make it so future younger dudes, because remember, Austin's 23, so to a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, which, by the way, I'm 36. I'm not speaking to those folks because I'm older, but somebody like Austin could, like 18, 19. They're trying to set the template so nobody else does it because they don't want a domino effect. They don't want Passport Bros to be like how the stepdaddy situation is, where in the 2000s and the 90s, whole bunch of stepdaddies. Now, no. Remember the black church? Once upon a time, there was black men in the black church. Now, no. They do not want that to be with the upperly mobile black men, because at that point, who else is going to spend money on? I mean, you say it yourself on this channel. Who else is going to spend money on black women if black men don't do it outside of the government? I'll land it there.
That's a lot. That's a lot.
All that I don't need no. And by the way, all that I don't need no man crap that we keep hearing. Oh, now you see how strong that really is. So when dudes leave, exactly.
I mean, that was my whole purpose of even having this conversation, because I'm like, how is it that we're so pressed? We are so pressed about quote unquote leftover men. We're so pressed about men that we don't care about, that we literally have created news articles, or going on to now news media sites and having interviews and talking about it, about men that we don't care about. And
that's like black men being pressed about Lizzo and women that look like her.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what's interesting is that other races of men are doing this, and there's not nearly as much attention.
Exactly.
Not nearly as much attention.
Exactly. Bingo.
And I've seen it for decades now at this point. Remember, I was military, so I've seen it for decades. And one of the military tactics, not a military tactical strategy, but it was a guy who was near retirement or close, who was retired or close to retirement. That was almost always in the plan if he was single. And or if he had been married and divorced and he had kids. Yep. And the kids were close to actually, either graduating. They would wait for the kids to graduate high school, have the nice lady come over and visit in the United States, whatever, but then leave once those kids graduate. Because at that point, he has no other respect. Matter of fact, you can almost say I'm that template. Because my kids are adults now, so I don't have any other reason to live in the United States other than to go back and visit them periodically and to conduct business. And that's all I do. When I'm in the United States for more than a few weeks, it feels weird to me now at this point. I had to go back for an operation and recover. I was there for 2 months. I was starting to get itchy after about 4 weeks. Like I need to get on. Like that's my country. But it's very interesting. And the other thing too is that these young men. So this was one of my concerns, was for these young men moving around and not really having their life experience to go along with it, was getting in trouble and not understanding that things could pop up at any second, and you have to be aware of that. I've had incidents where you see things develop, and you just got to be smart enough to walk away from it. I've had people come at me with racial slurs, not very often, but in other countries. And one of the ways I deal with that is I just smile and wave and go hello in the language and pretend I don't understand, but I hear exactly what they're saying.
Well, I would say in response to that, one of the actual issues with the Passport Bros is you're not getting like regular dudes. You're getting college graduates. You're getting guys that have something to lose. So somebody walks down the street and calls me the N-word. I'm like, okay, I can respond to them in 3-4 sentences in Japanese. Like, dude, come on, really? You're getting a different kind of guy. And so, I don't
even address it. I just smile and wave and go hello, and then just move along. I know exactly what they said and what they're saying. So I want to just completely dismiss it. Because I don't want to get in trouble in a foreign country. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I don't need that.
Well, my point. Go ahead. You got it. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say, with me, I got a different problem because of my height. I'm 5'5". I blend in. I can actually use a lot of that to my advantage because you can't tell what I am until you run up on me. Now, if you ask me, I'm gonna say I'm black. I'm unapologetically so. But I've had plenty of. I'm talking about Mexicans, Colombians, because a lot of the reason I travel too because I was in the call center industry helping to set up call centers, San Domingo, different places like that. And I can tell you, when I was over in these places, they would, how I know they thought I was Hispanic? Because they would speak to me that fast Spanish. That Spanish you get, and then as soon as I would say something, they could tell with the accent immediately that, and then they would, if they can't speak English, they would, switch to speaking.
Switch over.
Yeah. So they would walk in. So they actually believe, so I can blend in like very well. Now some people, they can tell even how I walk that I'm American, but I melt in. So even in that, because let's be clear here, when it comes to like how blackness is viewed very differently outside the world, and it depends on country to country. So even that's like a whole nother thing. And so but the thing about Austen, Austen is one of the younger passport bros. The reality is Austen, one of the reasons why Austen is getting the traction he's getting is for a couple of reasons. Number one, he's actually out there doing it. And number two, it's because, again, he has the conventional look that a lot of Black women want. That's the thing. And so for him to be doing that, he makes it so other guys that might match that, this ain't just something these type of dudes that can't get this, the perception is. And they want to stop that domino effect. And Austen is really one of the younger ones. Most passport bros are not that young. When you look at the guys that have channels, for example, you got guys like El Guapo, Pablo. These are guys that fit, what's the dude's name that was the ex-military? These guys fit your description, the description of the people that inspire me to travel. I know I haven't traveled to the place. I know a lot of guys that used to be in the military. They used to come from places like Sweden and stuff like that, and used to talk about how the Nordic women like Black men. Now me, I was attracted to Charles Tyler's group when I was out of high school. African American women versus African Brazil women. Would you date? Because I wanted Black women. This is why I talked about intercultural dating. Because my thing is, Black women are empowered to do whatever they want to do. That's the law. That's what it is. But at the same time, Black men can do what we want to do, which is why I often say that in this space, I'm going to tell you right now, and I'm not being facetious when I say this, I think it should be the policy of the Black manosphere to not only to actively encourage Black women to divest. If you want to leave, go. Do not let Black men be the reason, this idea that Black men are going to be mad that you leave. When Gabby Sidibe found a man, I was happy for her. Black men ain't really threw Serena Williams under the bus, even though we were the main ones defending Serena against Reddit. It is what it is. Same thing with her sister. Same thing with traveling. Black women already travel. And it's funny because my family likes to feel some type of way about me giving my younger cousins passports. But you know how I put them in a Chinese finger trap and I dare them to say something? I get the female cousins that too. In fact, some of my female cousins came up of 18 first, and I got two of them. I paid them to go, paid them the 90 to go get it. And so once I start getting into the my younger cousins, there were men, they couldn't say nothing. Because what are you going to say? And then the one that tried, I said, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want your son to have a Black wife, you sending them out overseas is going to be your best chance. Because I'm from Chicago. So the way certain women move, it's like for Black women, if you want your sons to get Black women that look like you, your best chance is to get them to go overseas and let them explore the diaspora. You can guide them the way they want. That's your best chance. But anyway.
Yeah, no, real quick shout out to you, O'Shea. I see you in the building. Thank you. I appreciate that generous super chat. And I think you said that's Ugandan shillings. I appreciate it. Real quick for you, and then also anybody who missed it. I actually did a live an hour or so ago where I break down the whole situation. So if you guys want to do a recap, I have another live where I break down the whole scenario. And yes, this is not a joke. This is like for real. It's like a 6 or 7 minute interview on Fox News. I think 27 or something. Like it's the Houston branch of Fox News. So check it out. Also, shout out to you, Trev Decking. I hope I didn't butcher that. His group in Jamaica see an American and European woman coming for sexploitation. When women do it, it's romanticized. When Black men travel, it's vilified. Yeah, that was my issue. That was my one of my main issues with the interview when these women are just like, they're going and sexually exploiting these women, and then you have an OnlyFans model going up there talking about how she's upset about these women being sexually exploited, but then nobody's talking about the all the Black women and white women and women of other cultures who go abroad to Africa and the Caribbean to sleep with all these Black men. Don't nobody talk about that. No one worries about sexual exploitation when it's women doing it. But now when Black men are doing something that also white men have been doing for God knows decades, now it's a problem. And it's like many of them, I think, are legitimately going abroad to find wives because best believe, in my opinion, I truly think more men actually desire marriage than women do. There's studies behind this. I'd have to find it. But so I don't think a lot of them are going around just trying to sleep around and do all this prostitution like they're painting it. But just the fact that they are exploring their options has people so big mad, even though they're leftover men that you don't care about. Like, it's just so much hypocrisy. Shout out to you, Marriage, Politics, and Sports with the 5. It says there are layers to everything, even the passport bros. Thank you. So, Edward, I know you would mention a few different things, a lot to unpack there. Any of you guys on the panel, did you have something you wanted to?
I want to hear Marty. What's up, Marty?
Hey, what's up, OG? How you doing?
Hey, what's going on, man? Get it in, man. What you got? I wonder what you got to say.
Oh, okay. Shay Sade, how you doing? First time on the show. I think I am subscribed to you. I do watch your videos.
Awesome.
What I was gonna say was to piggyback on Ed. What's up, Ed? How you doing?
Yeah, what's up? You gotta go, so I appreciate it. You know, I leave that. I'm curious. I'll be in the chat in the comment section if people have questions about what I said. And yeah, peace out. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks, Ed. Take care.
Yeah, you know, this.
Oops.
I mean, Ed covered a wide spectrum of things. He pretty much took all the gas out of the tank, you know. Yep. But you can cover it even just on the basic level. We can start from the U.S. What I hear a lot, like you just said, you know, men of means. So these men of means of making 50,000, these guys you would consider to be lame, average, you know, throwaways, but somehow they take a plane ticket. So now these men, these titans of industry, are going to these poor countries. And that's the first mistake you make, because I travel myself, right? And a lot of times people don't realize there's millionaires in every one of these countries, just like there's millionaires in every one of your cities, as well as the ghetto. There's very nice malls and not so very nice malls. It's in that respect, it's the same around the globe. You have good parts of certain areas and you have bad parts, right? So to assume the worst, like the person getting off the plane who himself is considered to be average in America, is going to these countries and automatically, without a travel brochure, without a guide, he knows where to go to get the dirty foots. Like it's crazy. And then when you turn that argument back on itself, the premise is, oh, you're making more money, and so you're taking advantage of women. And I sit back and I think to myself, I said, that's interesting. I've just watched Kevin Samuels, rest in peace to Kevin Samuels, for 2+ years before he, you know, died, you know, in the thick of everything. And night after night, I seen the same thing. What did you see? I want a man minimum making 6 figures, right? 70,000, toss him away. 80,000, not good enough. Minimum. Then we go into the 6 feet tall, and he's got to be funny. He's got to know how to jump off buildings. He got to be quiet when I need, like all these prerequisites, and that's fine. Anybody can want whatever they want, but he also said, "Can you get what you want?" So, but I'm just focused on the money aspect really quick. So when they say it's a power dynamic, that's the catchphrase, right? So I'm like, okay, cool. So what do you want? Oh, you got to pay my bills. You got to die for me. I'm like, wait a second. So it sounds to me, you want the same exact thing that every other woman in the world wants. The only difference is the location of the woman and how the US dollar translates. Now, Ed brought up a good point where he said the stepdaddies, the fallback guys are now exiting stage left.
Yeah.
What Austen Holleman, shout out to Austen, what he represents, people could say he made a mistake, this and that. Put all that to the side. The guy's 23 years old and he left the country where a lot of people are 53 and haven't left their block. So on just that premise alone, I respect that. Number two, the guy represents the youth. These Zillenials, they're not having these your mama's black conversations because they didn't grow up in the era of Dr. Martin Luther King and they grew up in the era of the cell phone. So their scope of vision is worldwide. So, and that's important for what I'm about to say, is because when you talk to most of these women, modern women, I do the air quotes with that. When you talk to most of these modern women and you say, hey, listen, you know, the pro wax, I call them the pro wax. You'll say to them like, listen, what is the problem? Why are you overweight? Keisha, I know you need a little bit of training, but why the attitude? And what they'll say typically is, well, it's social media. The social media shows me that I have to wear this weave. The social media shows me that I have to act this way. And the reason why I don't respect you is because social media. And I also say that's interesting, because social media to me shows me a light-skinned exotical woman who's in the gym, who's in the kitchen, who also knows how to take care of her man. So if social media is the main component, and I'm just going with their argument of conditioning, the social conditioning, wouldn't it be fair for you to understand why I want a traditional woman? Because when I go to the movie theaters, I see an in-shape woman with her hair natural who caters to a man in most cases. Why is this not reciprocated both ways? Because it's always this victim narrative, like, oh, I can't lose the weight because it's some bad luck story, you know, some sob story that happened to him. And I'm trying to tell them the market has changed, where these Zillenials coming up, they open up their cell phone and they see the best looking women from all over the globe. And when you meet somebody for the first time, the most important thing is the first impression. Because what happens, and I don't know if you guys on the panel have experienced this, what happens typically in America, you meet a female and she offloads all her previous luggage on you. I have ADHD. When I was a kid, this person touched me. So now I'm standoffish until you prove to me that you're some kind of man of a certain caliber. There's all these roadblocks in the way. Whereas when you go overseas, now we're just going to flip it to overseas, you kind of don't get that. If the woman kind of likes you, she kind of lets you know. There's no time to play the phone games. And here's another quick thing. When I go to Colombia, I noticed one thing that stands out. Most females don't sit in the house all day and watch Netflix. You know why? Because the culture there is more of let's go out, sports. They have certain days when they shut down the highways where everybody comes out, rides bikes, walks, and jogs. It's a very different culture in terms of health, and Brazil has something very similar. So all I'm saying, just to wrap it in a nice little tight bow, I know I veered off, but the new age Zillennial man is understanding. They're coming. I don't know if you've heard this story. There's a guy in New York City that he's a bus driver. His students have all been given passports by their fathers. And what's happening is the girls in the schools are actually picking physical fights to get them to kind of forfeit their passports now. It's like a tactic they're using to start trouble. So even the kids now, the older men who are in their 30s, early 40s, they're saying, listen, son, instead of the PS5, you're getting the passport. You see what I'm saying? And this is where things are going. So now, once you have the middle class men, because, you know, these were the guys, the undesirables, the fallback guys. Once you have the underclass, those considered to be underclass leaving, and to be quite honest with you, in New York City, it's very hard for, I'm going to just be honest, it's very hard for Black women to crack a certain financial stratosphere, so to speak. They kind of top off at the local rapper, you know. Now the Asian women in New York City, they can still command a certain type of guy, but it's very difficult because it's very expensive in New York, and guys are not playing those games out here. So once you have the middle class leaving and the upper class is already not even too much messing with you, what are you left with? Because Pookie's only got so much in the tank. You know, you might get a baby or two or something like that, but that's only going to stress us so far. So I think this knee-jerk reaction to label, and I'm seeing it, and Ed mentioned it, to label all these guys off the bat. There's like no gray. There's like no middle ground. It's like you travel, you're a predator. You travel, you're taking advantage. I'm like, wow. So we're not even human. We're not even allowed the human expression anymore. And I think that's weird more than anything, because I think some of these women also have sons and brothers, last time I checked. And
Right.
I'll leave it there, you know.
Well, and you know, it's interesting because to try to paint, for example, a 23-year-old Austen Holleman as the face of sexual tourism when you've had decades upon decades upon decades of white men and non-black men who have been going abroad. I mean, mail order bride, all this kind of different stuff. So, like, try to paint him as the face of sexual prostitution, international prostitution is like, it's just so disingenuous. That's why I think it's like it's tap, because it's like if you really cared about these women's rights, you would have been calling out decades ago, and you wouldn't be doing it yourself. You wouldn't be an OnlyFans model, but then complaining about sexual exploitation.
Yeah, it's like sex work is real work, but when other people do it, it's exploitation.
Right.
And the thing about it is, there's no even proof that these guys are doing any of that.
It's
But
not.
if we're going to stand on slut walks, if we're going to stand on the freedom of choice, because this is what the last 2 years was about: my body, my choice, my decision. So now I'm saying to myself, okay, let's just say I go along with that. Yes, you have free agency to do whatever you want. So I say, do you not believe in other women's right to choose? So are you saying she doesn't have the right to choose the type of man that she wants to deal with? Or it's just for you because you're an American? Oh, your audio's out. Sure, say that day.
Oh, my bad. No, I was saying that's how you know the conversation is disingenuous, because it's like there's all these double standards that don't apply. Also, you know what? I actually heard, I think it was Pan African Strike Back, shout out to him. He did a breakdown of this a few days, I think yesterday. And he did allude to the fact that something that I think was actually really interesting. And I also saw a comment that called it out, where it's like, Austen, while he is an attractive guy, that still doesn't necessarily mean that he even gets play. And I have seen this with my own eyes. Tall, you're talking like 6'5", dark-skinned black men, college educated, handsome, well-built. Like I've seen it with my own eyes, and they not get play. Because it's like, not only do you have to be, six-pack, six figures, 6 inches, everything. It's like, not only is it that, but you have to also prophesy, but then be a gangbanger, but then be a therapist, but then be, you know what I mean? Like there's all these expectations, and there's like a really specific prototype that black men go for when they're young. And it's usually like kind of the like future Pookie kind of persona.
Right.
They really don't go for like the good guys, the quote unquote nerds, however you want to put it. They don't go for those really until like after 30. And so even as handsome as Austen is, I would not be surprised at all if he got rejected. He even alluded to the fact that he has gotten rejected because he's not leaning in with that like kind of F-boy player type. And that unfortunately is what women are attracted to, hybristophilia, that attraction to danger and excitement. So it's like, I think even him as a handsome guy getting left over is a real thing. Like, again, I don't understand, if this dude's getting rejected, then why wouldn't we not celebrate the quote unquote leftover men going abroad and finding love if it makes them happy?
You know the biggest thing that I think a lot of females are it's not registering. Over here in the US, they have it seems as though, mainly in the black community, that the physical is put in the forefront and the resourcefulness is put in the background. Whereas everywhere on the planet, they don't have this welfare safety net.
That's right.
So when a woman's out there, she knows from a young age, she's coming up, her mother's teaching her how to cook, because her mother is teaching her basically how to survive and how to survive in the rest of the world. That's not the Western world, is to kind of get with a guy who's got his stuff together. Now, if he looks good, when I say look good, I mean like model status. Like if he has those looks, great. But if he's an okay looking guy, but he treats you well and he can actually sustain the household, that's the optimal. And so when an average guy goes overseas, first of all, it's not always the case that you can't get women here. And I think Austen is a testament to that, because he pretty much, he's not like 400 pounds and awkward. You see what I'm saying? So they can't, just the way they couldn't do that to Kevin Samuels. He was tall, well-dressed, smelled nice, clean cut. So you couldn't really shade him on the physical aspect. And that's the problem they have with Austen, which why they love and hate him at the same time, like they did Much Kevin. They're not understanding that women overseas, for one, they greatly outnumber the men in most areas. Number two, because there is no safety net, there is a more urgency to compete for a good man, not necessarily the best looking man. And that's why when you go to these countries, a lot of guys will say, man, I seen a guy working at a fruit stand, but his wife was amazingly hot. You know?
Yeah, that's pretty common. That's pretty common. Yeah, I see it all the time, man.
So now this is what I'm trying to put in the frame now. So now if you go over there, let's just say you're making the average salary to maybe a little bit above 50,000. Make it real simple. What they're not understanding, that 50,000, let's just take Colombia because that's like my favorite place right now.
Okay.
The dollar multiplies upwards of 5. So if you make 50,000, that's the equivalent of spending power of 250,000, right? That's how it translates over there. So whatever your lifestyle is now, multiply it by 5. Then once you multiply it by 5, you understand the average salary in Colombia a month is like for a minimum wage worker is around $300 a month. So now you go over there and you've got your physicality together. You're a decent dude. Maybe most black men cook. So they find that to be amazing because most men in these other countries aren't trained to cook like that. So you come over there, you know how to speak to a woman. You got your money situation together. You are the top 1%. Automatically, like you become boom. Now, it's for you to mess that up on your end as far as the guy. Most likely it doesn't happen. So now being the top 1%, compare that to being the top 1% in America, what type of woman you would come in contact with. And that's what they're not understanding. And what makes it even more of a point is that woman who probably looks just as good doesn't require half as much. She's just happy that you're supportive. You know, you're not crazy. You know, you don't beat on her. You're a potential father to her future children. She's happy with the basics. And if you can provide more than that, that's good on you. And so when you experience that for, let's just say 3 weeks, you see natural women with their natural hair, in shape women. And it's not always because they work out all day. Sometimes the food is not pumped with the pesticides and the growth hormones. So naturally they're thin, naturally. They don't always require makeup. And they have a friendly disposition. So now you come back into the US and now it's back to the phone games. Text me, you don't text back. Oh, to go out, you need to spend this, that. You have to be this tall. So you know what? You're like, okay, I see where this is going. I'm going to formulate a plan, which is why you're going to start to see more remote workers. Because if you get your certifications in certain areas, IT and such, you can work in any country you want to work in. And then those USD dollars translate into whatever country you're in. You're pretty much putting yourself in the top 1% around the globe. And basically life looks great and you don't have to deal. And I'm not saying everything is perfect, but the stuff that you don't have to deal with is worth it. And that's what people are not understanding because they're like, why are they traveling overseas? Let me tell you something. Any girl that I've invited, because I go to Colombia a lot.
Okay.
They're intimidated to go to these countries. You try to take your girlfriends to Eastern Europe, Brazil, Colombia.
Oh, yeah.
They don't even want to go down to Miami because that's a bikini town. So we're talking about women who look great in bikinis who don't have the arrogance. They're very friendly.
Well,
hey,
how about most American guys, if they dated someone, how many of the guys listening now can say that they've dated multiple women that weigh less than 120 pounds? How many? I mean, you have to go the opposite way here. How many women do I see on a daily basis that weigh more than 150? Like it's bizarre world for Americans. You go overseas and they're nice, or at least let me say they're polite. And so you go from that, and then it's like, I deserve, I earned. You got to show me. And it's like, whoa, slow down. Now I don't need that. And Austen Holleman he scares them because to be honest, the true competition is not the Asian woman, it's not the Latino woman. It is the dark-skinned children that they've had with Africans, with other Black Americans that kind of understand the Black experience, but they have the socialization of other countries, and they get with an African American guy. Oh, he can understand my Blackness. I'm going to give him. I mean, I've seen it. Imagine coming back home with a Naomi Osaka on your arm, with a Ariana Miyamoto on your arm. That's a nightmare. That is a nightmare for women back home. They cannot compete with that. They know, and it's got to scare them to death. It's got to. That's what the shaming's for, I believe.
And I think at the end of the day, it's definitely fear. And this is where I wish, as women, we could be a little bit more honest with ourselves and our intentions, because if we could actually address that fear and maybe actually be self-reflective and then address some of the issues that have men feeling like their best option is going abroad, then maybe you might have better personal results in your life. Because I always say, look, if you're a good woman, then this should not scare you. You should be like, yeah, of course, go where you're going to have better options. But there are men out here, even if they support the passport bros, it's not in them to go and try to live abroad or travel abroad. They're happy where they're at. So not every single man is going to be going abroad. But it's like, nevertheless, if you're a good woman, especially in the sea of like Tatianas, you're going to stand out. So this shouldn't bother you. But to your point, there's the fear, and I think there's the inability to really be self-reflective and start to figure out, okay, well, why is this happening? Why are these men feeling this way? And what could I do to compete if I'm still in the dating and mating market? And instead of addressing that, then it's just easier just to, to point the fingers and say, well, men are bad. Shout out to you real quick, Andre and Andrea. It says, love crossing borders. It says, women in the States assume that women in other countries are helpless. Yes, dollars are stronger, but many women here are doctors, lawyers. The vice president of Colombia is a Black woman. My wife is a corporate tax accountant. Yeah, it's not like all these women are just laying on the floor in some dirt, waiting for a savior. Like, I think they have a really gross stereotype about these women. Like, they don't have their own lives and their own jobs and things to do.
To be honest with you, a great percentage of men and women that have these strong views of what's going on and the state of women overseas, if you really ask them, they've never been overseas.
No,
they've never been. Their knowledge goes as far as like that movie called Taken. Remember that movie Taken?
Oh,
and they think the Woman King. They think that's what overseas is like. Like, if you ever remember those Sally Jesse Raphael commercials with the flies and the big stomachs, they think that's what Africa is. Not understanding that a lot of places in Africa are very well built and modern.
And beautiful. I love the few times I've been to Africa. I love it, and I'm like, I want to go back as soon as possible. It's beautiful out there. And by the way, it's so funny how you got all these Black folks out here trying to find reason to go to Paris, and Parisians and Europeans are always trying to find reason to go to Africa. I always,
yeah, absolutely, yeah. So I can speak to that real quick. That's the women are actually seeing that what Andre just put up there. So the women are actually seeing what the women are saying about them, and it's primarily Black women that's saying it, by the way. And which they should know better, because it's stereotyping, it's denigrating the women. And the interesting thing is that the women in these other countries see it, and you know what they're doing? They're literally hitting back. They're clapping back, and good for those women, because it's look, Black people don't like being stereotyped. We get the worst stereotypes, especially as Black men. Yep. Black women have stereotypes as well. Some of those stereotypes they've earned. But the other part of it too is that they know they don't like it themselves. So why would you get on? I mean, literally, almost when you talk about it, when you hear a Black woman talk about it, they're denigrating these women without really, without considering the fact that they're actually doing it. They just, this is a matter of fact. They're uneducated, barefoot, and living in shacks. I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm overseas, and people that live around me have homes that are just as nice or bigger than mine. There's a place 10 minutes down, about 12 minutes down the road. They have McMansions. I call them McMansions. The people out here have money. Now, is that the entire population? No, absolutely not. I'm always around the people with money, because I run in those circles, and I understand. I see, where there's situations where it's a little bit less. But I'm always around the people who are, at least solid to upper middle class or better. And Yeah, and I'm usually, and when I'm moving around, I'm usually one of the few black people in and around that space. They don't really mind as long as as long as I just kind of move around and fit in. But yeah, the whole thing about stereotyping those women, that's not a good look. Those black women got to stop doing that.
Yeah, people don't realize that every country has colleges and jails. If you break the law, you go to jail. And a lot of people go to college, even women. And to be honest with you, some of them are testing so high in the TOEIC scale that they can test higher on TOEIC than many Americans. So, yeah. And they want to get married after they get out of college. They're not trying to have my 20s belong to me. They're not doing that stupid stuff. They're trying to get married out of college.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I think a lot of those statements where they're talking down on those women comes from this myth of womanhood that they have, that women don't work. Most women around the world work. Most people around the world work in one capacity or another. Like, they may not, typically men and women aren't doing the same jobs and filling the same roles, but most of them go to work. And I honestly, I think this whole passport bros thing raises one big hell of a question, which is, why is it so hard to view a black man as human and worthy of something? Why is it so hard to treat somebody right?
Well, there's a lot of theories on that, but so people in the United States are conditioned from what they spend 20, 30 years being conditioned to think one way specifically about black men. And understand, we're conditioned that way too. We're conditioned to actually think that way too, in a negative way. You have to actually force yourself not to think that way. And if you don't actively go against it and work that out, then you're just going to kind of, you're going to template you're going to do what everybody else does, but just take the worst of the group and template all black men that way. It's lazy thinking. It's unfortunate, but a lot of people do it. I expect it out of all the, if you're non-black, I expect it out of you, so I'm not surprised. But if you're black, then I expect you to know better, especially if you're a woman and you're actually trying to get a husband. Then you're going to have to actually, recondition your mind to not, think that way about your own men. You're just going to have to do it.
Well, another thing that's happening is that black dudes overseas are meeting Africans. Africans don't have that mindset, dude. African men, please, man. They do not think like us. It rubs off on you, man.
I wanted to ask Jay Sarday, like, what are the women that you know of, like, how do they feel about this? Like, what's their take on it?
That's a really good question, because truthfully, the women that I'm really in close relationship with, talk to on a regular basis, are married, busy raising their kids, and work when they're not working. They are, just trying to maintain their home. So my close circle is not deeply engaged in this conversation because they're just caught up with life. I just happen to do, like, this is kind of like my side business, right? Just doing this online thing. So I'm more engaged. But if you're not like online like that, you don't have like a job where you're online, or you're just not working, like, you're just living your life. So
or even if it's like a couple of notches, like, say, like the younger crowd, like, do they notice a shift happening where most of the quote unquote well-to-do or guys on a forward trajectory are not really checking for them? So I get it. When they're younger, they're looking for the bad boys. I get that part. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I think there's a few different things, and to be clear, I do plan on doing like a dating panel on Gen Z, so stay tuned for that, because I think that'll help. That might help answer your questions on, like, what are these young girls thinking. But it's, some of the complaints I've heard are kind of age-old complaints, like the good men don't want black women. Like, there's one girl I know in particular where she's like, she's conservative Republican, and she's like, black Republican men don't seem to like black Republican women. Like, they're always with the white chicks. So I'll hear that stuff. But it's
that is a pretty interesting stereotype, and that's about 50% true.
Okay,
I didn't know that's about 50% true.
Okay.
There's some truth to that. But honestly though, if she's good, but she should be straight though. If she's tracking on all the other checkpoints,
right?
She should be good.
Exactly. So I don't, I don't want to speak too much on it because that's kind of what my dating panel I'm putting together. I want it to be about, to kind of let some of the young girls speak about their experiences young with the young men. But that's kind of what I heard. Women complaining about, if you're talking about Black men, kind of the same old complaints. And then I think at a certain point, just men are just, men, period, we know are checking out of all races. This is not just Black men. So,
but at one point, it was just competition between Black women. Then it became, then in the 1990s, you saw there was interracial competition. So that was a problem. You remember the Sally Jesse Raphael and those other shows where, the Black women would get on there and go, y'all taking our men. Okay, well, then what that forces you to do is actually have to be a better woman. That's what it really forces you to do. Now you have international competition. Like, all it really should force you to do as a woman is just tighten up. Look at the age range that you're in, look at your weight, make sure you don't have any kids, show up young and childless, ready, to be friendly and all that fit. What is it? Friendly, always cooperative, ready to be a wife and mother. You do all of those things, then men don't really have a reason to leave. You got to give more. You got to come up with more of a reason for men to stay versus giving them reasons to go. And complaining about it is not going to help.
Facts. Big facts.
Shay Sarday, it sounds to me like you're saying women that are happily married with families don't have enough time to be worried about the passport bros.
No, they don't care.
No, okay. It would seem that it's another group of people that seem to care.
Well, that's what I was saying before. I'm like, if you're a good woman, like if you are a, competing, competitive, this shouldn't bother you because you're going to stick out like a sword. Like you will stick out. Okay. So this shouldn't bother you. And then the rest of the women who are happy living their lives are like, okay, who cares? So the ones who say that they don't care, but are constantly talking about it, then you already know what's going on there.
Yeah. And I would just like to add, like, maybe a little bit, there seems to be a thought at some point, like, oh, the white girls are taking all the men out. And I'm like, it's really the Latinas. The reason why, because they kind of live in the same neighborhoods. And they also come from somewhat of a functional patriarchy in the US, at least. Not only that, they're watching you. And I've said this before. Social media works both ways. So when you're doing things, let's just say the Glorilla, I think her name is Scissor.
The rapper?
Yeah, like, there was one rapper who was a singer. She was dancing pregnant.
Summer Walker.
Yeah, Summer Walker. Yeah.
Yeah, that did not look good. That's a terrible. That looked. I don't even like saying the word, but that was.
So when you see girls like her,
it can be said.
Girls like Keke Palmer, who's pregnant with no man, then you see all this confusion. And what they're doing, I'm just going to give Black women who's listening a little bit of game. They're actively watching you. They're putting a playbook together, and it's very simple. Do the opposite of whatever you're currently doing. So if you don't cook, she cooks. You're not submissive, she's submissive. You don't cater to his needs, she caters to his needs. It's so easy for them to, because you'll hear people say, well, they're stealing all our best men. No, what it really is, they have foresight. I don't know if anybody ever seen Thundercats.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was my joint back in the day.
Yeah. So when you have the foresight to see in the future, like, the guy might not be where he needs to be, but he's the hero you needed. So they have the foresight to pluck these guys out of college. And then when they turn around and become the next Mark Zuckerberg, then why is he with the white girls? And what happens is, white women and other women know their limit in terms of where their sexual market value starts to decline. So they're going to turn it up. They'll put themselves in spaces, the men that they want. So they'll be in that guy's direct trajectory. They'll cater to that guy on the way up. They won't wait till he reaches the top of the mountain to say, here I am, I was waiting for you. And that's what our women tend to do. They want the finished package. And if you can get the finished package, by all means. But the finished package is a very small percentage of guys.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
If I can,
I was going to say, usually that is such a small percentage. Like now you're talking like generational wealth. Most people who have the finished package were born into wealth and then they marry into wealth. You know, even like the overwhelming amount of people who have that like retiree lifestyle, because literally what we're talking about is a retiree lifestyle, right? People who have worked, 30, 40, 50 years and they're now enjoying the fruits of their labor. Like most people get married young or get married younger and then build. That's what people have done for like ever. So this whole this leisure life of leisure, it's legitimately a fantasy, because I can't ever think of a time in society where there is a whole generation of women who just lived in leisure. I mean, unless you're talking about like slavery, right? And you had like the rich slave owners, or like feudalism or something. But most people worked. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think what's going to be sad, and I would give it five years total, because what's going to happen is people are popping out babies and they think they're like Skittles. It's like like an ornament, like a accessory. Mm-hmm. And once you get to a certain age, the phone calls are going to stop coming in to go to certain parties. You're not going to get the attention. Why? Because there's a new crop, a new wave. And that's why you see certain women, and it's really only in the Western culture, mainly in ours, where age gap dating is a thing. Listen, when you go overseas, any country, I'm not even just saying Colombia, any country, the women are looking for stability above everything else. And so it's not uncommon to see a 10 to 15 year age gap, and it's normal. Over here, what happens is people make mistakes, they wait too long, and then they try to shame you for wanting something that's not so damaged. Like, oh, you're a predator if you date a woman that's younger. Well, I'm like, I thought women had free choice. So it's also incumbent upon that woman to choose you. So are you negating her choice to choose?
Absolutely. No, that's facts.
Yeah. So, so it's crazy to me how it's like a double standard even between women. It's like, we want the right to choose, my body, my choice. But then when a younger woman chooses to date an older man for stability because she sees all the craziness, somehow her choice, she's too young to make decisions, but she can go on OnlyFans at 18 years old and sell her box for $5 a month. So
and be celebrated.
And be celebrated. There's slut walks about this. So it's very confusing to the average young man coming up, because it's like, okay, the rules change too quickly. I don't understand what's going on, but you know what? I can get my passport and go somewhere where the rules still apply and it makes sense.
Absolutely. What's going on, Pan-Africanism Strike Back? I'm going to drop the link for you to call in.
So
I saw your show. I think yesterday, of the breakdown of this interview. I thought it was really, really good.
One thing that women have to stop saying, or black women specifically have to stop saying, they're stealing our men. It smacks of entitlement.
Right.
Like you don't have to do anything to actually earn your position as a wife and mother, as it relates to like, okay, I already got this. I'm already locked in. I really want. This guy's mine. And the thing about it is, people forget. For some reason, especially when the interracial dating thing popped off, and black men were actually marrying outside of the race, then it was always about the celebrities. People forget about the majority of the average men who primarily marry black women at an 80% plus rate.
Right, absolutely.
Everybody's doing that. 80% plus rate, black men are marrying black women. Now, here's the thing. Here's the problem. This is what I always say, is that black men and women aren't marrying enough. That's the issue. We only have a 30% marriage rate. We're down 50+% from the 1960s and earlier, to where black men and women used to be married at an 80% plus rate. That was our average, 80% plus. Almost every kid grew up in a 2-parent home in a strong black community, with schools, banks, hospitals, rec centers, all that other stuff, all the stuff that we keep talking about. And when I say this, I'm like, look, y'all that's what I hear about women. When I hear the women talk about what black men aren't doing, I'm like, well, are you married? Do you have a husband? I was kind of, I didn't scream at her, but I was just kind of emphasizing to a woman, and she kind of gave up at some point. And I said, look, don't talk about what it is black men aren't doing if you're not sitting here talking, if you don't have a husband, because that's what husbands do. They put in all the work to make sure you have all those things. If you have 80% of your men married to black women, all of that stuff falls in place. And I know we talk about, supremacy and extremism and all this other stuff and everything else. But remember, the 80% plus marriage rate was at the height of legalized segregation and apartheid, domestic terrorism and racism, open racism in the United States. And we still managed to get that done and still managed to have those communities. So, it's just, we gotta have some perspective on it and look at it historically speaking, and women got to get away from that. They're taking our men, because it's, you sound way too entitled, as if you just automatically locked in. All you just got to do is show up and put yourself in a position, and you still have to earn the position. And I look at it like this: if men have to do what they're supposed to do every day and earn our position and spot as respected men in society, especially black men, then you have to earn your position every day as a wife and mother within the construct of that community. If you're not doing that,
right. Pan-Africanism Strikes Back. Also, I see the Black intellectual. What you got, Brandon?
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, so the reality is black men have been paying attention and taking notes. And what black women have made totally clear in America, a lot of them, not all of them, is that any man who wants a woman to submit to him, who wants a woman who ascribes to traditional values, is a male chauvinist, woman hating pig, a misogynist, okay? I have my own mother call me a misogynist. Why? Because I want a woman with traditional values and she's never been married, so she doesn't know how to display those. So now those men have said, look, you guys don't want us. You guys don't want to conform to what we desire in a woman, so we're going to go somewhere else. It's like someone said, I don't want you, but I don't want nobody else to have you. You remember back in those days, you date an ugly girl, you don't even date her. You go mess around with her, but then you don't want to be her boyfriend. But as soon as she get a boyfriend, you mad and you hating on them, trying to sabotage their relationship because you don't want her, but you don't want nobody else to have her. That's what black women are having. Why don't black women go? Because what black women are realizing is that those men that they claim they didn't want, and he's a chauvinist and all that stuff. The reality is that those are the best men in our community. Those are the men who are working hard and they are able to be providers for their family. But because those men wouldn't accept degenerate black women as they are and expected those women to display some level of maturity, right? They didn't want to do it. They didn't want to conform. They didn't want to be agreeable. So now those men are going somewhere else. And like the brother said, women is so hypocritical. Women talk about my body, my choice. These women brag about getting flued out to other states and getting flown to the Caribbean and stuff to do all sorts of whatever for money or to be with some rich guy for a couple of days. But when the black man starts to go explore his option internationally, it's a huge problem. And it's really just a double standard and pure hypocrisy.
I agree.
I don't disagree with that one at all. So we have Black intellectual, and then we have, is that May? I don't want to.
It's May. Yeah, May.
May. Okay.
Okay. So my thing is like I kind of was gonna go where he was just at with it, where he was saying like I don't want you like the smart dudes. The smart black dudes are always told they're the white boys of the community. They're not really looked at as a sexual person or anything like that. And like I'm not saying that they should want sex, but they're looked at as the lame. They're corny. They don't have that whatever black women are looking for, which I think is ridiculous, but I'll digress. And the issue for that for me is that that's the guy you're going to complain about not existing later on. So if you're already going to complain about it, why not just scoop him up? And I've actually mentioned this on Miss Didi's channel. Have you ever seen Miss Didi before?
Didi, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
She usually has a young lady on there named Z. And I mentioned to her that if black women are on college campuses as much as they say they are, how come they don't get with the black dudes that's on college campuses with them? They pass those guys up all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And then when they see that guy with the white girl on campus, because she saw, oh, wait, he's going to be an engineer. If I get him now, I'll benefit in the long run.
Exactly.
If I build with him, I'll benefit in the long run. But the problem is when black women see him with her, they say, oh, that's where they always go to. But none of y'all wanted him. So why can't he go where he's wanted? Like, if you don't want him, but you don't want no one else to have him, why can't he just go where he's wanted? If a Spanish girl wants him, why can't he go with her? That's usually been my biggest issue.
No, I understand. I definitely think there's a double standard. I have seen with my own eyes good, handsome, tall, dark-skinned, muscular men get passed up, get put in the hole, either you're the patriarchal or they're not hood enough. And then I'm like, best believe 5-10 years, those same men, if they end up with non-black women or if they end up with women from other countries, they're going to be shamed. They're going to get all kinds of guilt. Whereas when they were in college and they were, going for their master's and a PhD, you didn't want nothing to do with them. Mm-hmm. Or you were saying that they were patriarchal because they didn't want to have to do a pronoun. They just wanted to call you by your name. You know what I mean? Like they didn't. So.
And I bring this up all the time, and it's always like, "Oh, you hate black women. Oh, you hate your mom." And I'm like, "No, we're literally seeing this take place. Like, if I work on a college campus and I also go to college, I'm seeing this on 2 different campuses all the time."
Right.
Sade, women don't want women, and men do this in ways too here in America. Women will admire a man that they will never be with, right? So they hear that a guy's a doctor. Ooh, girl, he a doctor. But they will never be with that person because women don't want to be with any man who requires them to make a change on their part. It's almost like, you can't live up. The women want to compete with their men, right? So when they find a man who they feel like, it might be hard to compete with him, they not gonna even entertain even if he pursues them, because they are these dysfunctional women. They always want to have the option of saying, "In words, you ain't ish. Get the f out of my house." That's their fallback plan, right? If you tell a lot of black women something about themselves or a flaw about their character, you identify a flaw in their character. It can never be about like, "Yo, what makes you say that?" or "Maybe I need to try to do better at that." It's always a defensive attack on your manhood, your masculinity. Now, if you tell a woman, "Look, your feet kind of stink. Maybe you should wash them." "Oh, you a misogynist. You hate women." Like, it can't just be that it just can't be that her feet smell. You know what I'm saying? It has to be some underlying hatred you have for women. And that's the way women have been trained in America to try to dodge accountability for any and everything, like a dog in traffic. I mean, literally, a woman will raise a child, and if she raises that child in a dysfunctional way, the woman don't gotta take responsibility for the 18 years she spent with the kid. Nah, it's because the dad wasn't around. Like, wait a minute. You had 18 years to mold this kid, but the kid grew up to be a damn bank robber because the daddy wasn't around? See what I'm saying? So women have bought into that stuff, and now men are tired of that. You go to third world countries, you go to other countries, women are accountable. Ain't no welfare system to give them a false sense of accomplishment, to soften the landing. It's like, no, you got to bust your butt and work, or if you don't work, you're literally not gonna eat. See, when women don't get a food stamp card or EBT card, men submissions start looking real good, Sade. What do you want me to do? I don't care what he's telling me to do. Shit, he putting food on the table every day. He going to work and providing every day. These women have been made fat, comfortable, and lazy by the American entitlement system, and they have bought into this idea that being able to swipe an EBT card in the grocery store is an accomplishment, when in reality, it's just showing how lazy and dysfunctional you are.
Well, that's a lot to unpack there, but I do want to give May a chance to weigh in. I know you've been waiting patiently in the back.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you for giving me an opportunity. I have been definitely a voice that's against the passport bros for several reasons. There's a lot of propaganda that is being spewed. And I know you did a video the other day and you were saying something to the effect of, why do people keep talking about the passport bros? Well, the reason why they're controversial is because, see, when you're happy and everything is good, you just move on and do your thing. You don't keep talking about all the stuff you don't like, because it has nothing to do with your current state. Just move on. And so that all badgering Black women, it doesn't make sense. So that's one of the reasons why it keeps being brought up. If they keep Black women's names out their mouth and just move on with their life,
they get paid to do that.
Let me finish, brother. To white, Asian, or whatever else they want, and just move on and be happy. That would be a very easy thing. So if they just stop doing that, it would be fine. Nobody's against Black men going abroad. They really aren't.
Yes,
the second thing is this.
Can I respond to that?
Can I finish, please? I just want to finish.
Just let the
Damn, you sounded combative.
Please.
No, let her finish.
Let her finish, man. Let her finish.
Yeah, let her finish. You can weigh in.
The second point I wanted to make is there's this brother named Andre and Andrea, love crossing borders. He would have been the perfect candidate for the Passport Bros. And let me tell you why. Because this is a real brother who knows how to build, who has money and assets. He has taken the time and energy and invested in himself, a relationship, and a family. This is who they should have put up instead of a 23-year-old boy who does not know how to travel, has no assets, and he's just jumping on a whim, chasing women to the point where the women put him out of a country. And then now he's in another country insulting that country. He's probably going to get put out of that one. They picked a bad representative. And also the thing is that it's a lot of sex tourism. That's what the Passport Bros is based on. I had a 2-hour-long debate with Chantel Simone telling her all these points, and nobody believed me. But I have property in the Dominican Republic, so I know very well who these guys are. I want to say this clearly. Black men, we do not own you. You can go and marry anybody you want to. You don't need our permission. You are free. The best thing to do is not to talk how bad Black women are. It didn't work for Austen, and it's not going to work for anybody else. If you're happy, just like Brother Andre, move on. Enjoy your life. But you don't have to bash Black women in the process. Because the final point I want to make is that the truth is that about 70% of Black women do not want to be married. Look at what people do, not what they say. And if you understand that 70% of Black women are bypassing marriage, more Black men seem to want to be married than Black women. This is why Black women play games. This is why Black women don't treat Black men well. They treat them as they're temporary because they do not desire husbands. That's my opinion.
So why do they talk trash about us?
And lastly, my very last point, and I'm done.
You got 10 points.
Let her finish, man.
Then I have nothing else to say. My very last point. The Passport Bros can go. And let me tell you why. They are not the desirable men. I have seen them walking up and down the street in Dominican Republic, and I'm sure others have seen them. They are fat. They are ugly. They're funny looking. They're socially awkward. They're broke. They're hungry. They're thirsty. They're sexual perverts. They do not mean women any harm. They're not looking for wives. They can absolutely leave because they're leftovers, as Kevin Samuels would say. And that's my final thought.
Can I ask her a quick question real quick?
Brandon, you can go in. You can lean in.
She literally said, if you're happy, you don't worry about other people and what they're doing. That was her first statement. This is what I don't understand. Why is a married woman who's been married just as long as me worried about what a bunch of single 23-year-old men are doing on the internet? If that's the case, if you're happy and you're not supposed to worry about anything else, if you're happy, that was your statement, right? Then you are a hypocrite. You literally are worried. A married woman, your husband is somewhere doing what he's doing, but you're focused on 23-year-old young boys and what they're doing on the internet in another part of the country. That is the first thing I caught about what you said, May. And guess what? That means you're a hypocrite. And clearly you are pressed by these young men. And that makes me question, are you going to the Dominican Republic to pursue young men for, not so on the up and up activities?
Do you want my
because
response?
why are you worried about it? It's beyond your scope. Like, you are married. You should be coaching women on how to be good wives.
Do you want my response? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead and respond.
Do you want my response? I said at the very beginning, keeping Passport Bros keeping Black women's name out of their mouth as the excuse as to why they have to go. That's the problem. I happen to be a Black woman who is married, but I'm a Black woman, and I don't appreciate the bashing. I don't like the bashing. That's why I speak up. Secondly, being married does not mean anything. Half of these people on YouTube who have channels are also married. Kosher Commission, I believe, is married. It's a lot of people married. Shay Sharday is married. Is she wrong to care about the topic and to have it? Married does not exclude you from society, sir.
Can I
ask you a question?
Sharday is being objective. You're pressed.
I want to ask a question. Can I ask a question?
Wait, can I? Because
we'll just go around the horn just ask her one question one at a time. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So my thing is, you just said, right, that like black men, they want to travel. They're allowed to travel. Keep Black women's name out their mouths. Black women do the same thing all the time. They say, "Oh, get you a white king, Black men ain't shit. Get you an Asian man, Black men ain't shit." Or do this, that, and the other thing because Black men don't have money. Black men read at the 4th grade level. We've heard it all for decades. So now, for the first time in like 60 years, Black men finally have the mic, and it's not okay. That seems like a real big hypocritical situation for me. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out, why is it okay for Black women to talk down on Black men all the time? But when we speak up about something that's a minor issue like attitude problems or a little overweight, now all of a sudden all hell breaks loose.
It's not unacceptable, brother. It's not unacceptable. I agree with you.
I will say this, because this was my point I made earlier in my previous slide, where when I was going over the interview that Fox News did, I understood the issues that the Black woman had raised as far as like, look, you can go abroad if you want, but why do you have to, in the process, be disparaging to Black women? So I understand that.
That lady got 2 sons out of wedlock with no husband in sight.
No, let me finish. So like, and I broke that down in my other live. That whole thing to me is just a total fiasco, and it's just all cap. But really, I was like, if we're concerned now about trying to keep the Black business out of the mainstream and we want to kind of stay on code or whatever, then we would have been doing that for Black men the last couple of decades. And I think that's the issue, because it's like, you know, where are we when you have Black women calling for the abortion of all Black male babies, and we have Black women saying y'all can't even die right? We have these people that are clearly violent, and they're not being canceled. There's the thing about it. Black women are great. They are fantastic at cancel culture. But this misandry stuff can go around and there's no cancellation. So it's like, I understand as a Black woman, your concern of just like, why are we hearing all these negative things? I don't like it. That's why I talk about this different stuff. But also, I feel like there needs to be the same concern when it's Black men, or else it's going to fall on deaf ears. And I think that's what's happening. You've had a lot of men who are just like, y'all been talking about us so bad, not just like talking about our looks. You're talking violent rhetoric. You're talking abortion. You're talking genocide, and nobody bats an eye. And then now we're going and we're exploring our options. We as leftover men, because you said that they're leftover men. You're calling us leftover men. We're going abroad now, and then now you're shaming us. So it's like that's why I can understand the frustration, but I'm like, we have to be balanced, and we have to be honest with this. And I think unless we're willing to do that, especially as women, and make sure that men are being disrespected in the way that we want to be respected, then I think it's going to continue. Personally,
I hear you. I think that comments for me and what she was talking about. One of the people said that sometimes an OG moves in silence. And I think that may be the case that needs to happen, moving in silence.
Well,
older men have been doing this for a long time, and that's when I try to talk to those younger men about how to move around and not, get in trouble. That would be my concern. My actual concern is them actually losing their life. But this is kind of a wake up call for them. But there was something that it sounds as if what you're doing is you're conflating sex tourism with this whole passport bro concept. The two are actually different, and I don't expect women to make this separation, but men actually do. Sex tourism is exactly what it is: sex tourism. The guys who are going for sex tourism aren't talking about trying to find wives and none of that other stuff. And if they do that, we don't control that anyway, and it's none of our business as long as they don't break any laws and they don't leave a bunch of kids all over the place. And so far, there's not any indications that that's really happening. So the passport bros are two different things, and the other thing. Yeah, and the other thing too is that this is kind of what I'm seeing. There's legitimate constructive criticism that's coming out against both Black women and Black men. Men seem to do okay with constructive criticism. Women, sit here and listen to it and they call it bashing. That's not what bashing is. Bashing is me insulting you for no reason other than just to hurt your feelings and to harm you or to just be abused, be emotionally and verbally abusive. That serves no purpose other than I get something out of it. All right. And it hurts you in the process. But if you're literally, criticizing negative behavior, toxic behavior, something that's not constructive, that's not helping the community, it's not helping women, it's not helping men, we have to actually be able to speak about that. And it can't be called bashing. That's the one thing that I see women conflate. The two are actually separate. And I don't think, and it seems that women can't separate the two, but men do a lot better job of actually being able to understand what constructive criticism is, holding somebody is.
Kev, I went on Austen. Let me say this. I went on Austen Holleman.
No.
I went on Austen Holleman's channel and I talked to the brother. He had a panel full of dudes from the Passport Bros thing, right? I was on him about why they not going to Africa more, meeting black women and stuff. The brother's a good brother. He was very receptive, didn't get combative, didn't get defensive. Now I want to see this girl go to Cynthia G's channel and try to tell her maybe she shouldn't call for the abortion of black men. I bet you she'll get cussed out. Them girls they'll turn on you like a pack of wild dogs. So what it is you got women telling people, oh, you need to stop talking about a bunch of women who are so out of control that they literally will cannibalize on another woman if she dares to tell them to do something that's best for them. It's like a artificial intelligence that has become self-aware and is now out of control. You keep trying to tell people to back up off them, but you can't even control them. So they're just a bunch of rogue radicals who will do and say anything to justify the nasty behavior they have. So I think the women should talk to the women, the men should talk to the men. We've talked to Passport Bros. We've talked to Romy Peso. These are good brothers. They don't mean no harm on nobody. You saw the boy when how scared he got when the girl was like, yo, he went and apologized. He did everything he was supposed to do and asked to do. Now show me Cynthia G issuing an apology. You'll never see it. And you guys are not going to move us off our square. You women are degenerate and the Passport Bros have class. You guys are classless. They have class. And until you can get a hold of them, then you are not qualified to tell nobody to do anything.
Hey, can I add something real quick into this whole conversation since I kind of been just sitting back?
That's fine.
Okay. So good evening, everybody. I'm 31 years old. I'm in a situation where I make a pretty significant amount of money. I've traveled to several different countries, and my perspective on things is this: 17% of Black Americans travel internationally, period. Out of all of the Black people in America, 17% travel internationally. So that in and of itself shows you that's a very small percentage of people that travel globally that are Black. So I don't know the woman's name who was speaking about her having property in the Dominican Republic, but for you to sit there and say those disparaging words about the Black men that are going to these other countries, I think it's kind of very subjective, simply because you don't know all of these people who are traveling to these places. Some people go for sex tourism. Some people go for several other things. I just came back from Thailand about 2 weeks ago, and I went there and I bought gold. I actually bought gold bullion from there. So when it comes down to it, you don't know what the next person is traveling for and what reason they're going to these places for. When it comes down to it, I think ultimately, if a person has enough money and enough wherewithal to be able to put the money together to buy a passport, to plan a trip, to go to these places and to travel around the world, that's something that should be revered. And so there really aren't a lot of us that do it. And when it comes down to it, I say ultimately to each his or her own. If you are a person that has the leverage to be in a position, if date whatever group of people you want to date, do you. Because ultimately we all came into this world by ourselves, and we want to leave the same way. When we have to see the face of whoever you believe is God, you have to do that individually. No one is going to be standing next to you. So even with the brother that's speaking about Africa, I don't see nothing wrong with people traveling to Africa, but you have a lot of Black people that may not even want to date women that are in Africa. They may want to date women in Brazil and Colombia, etc. So I say get in where you fit in, but just make sure that you do what's going to be best for you. As long as you're not hurting someone else, do what you got to do.
Yeah, brother, I want to respond to you. First of all, congratulations to you for your adventures and your
first time panel's been quiet in a while. I do real quick. I did see a few super chats come through.
Oh, okay.
So shout out to you, Yippee. Is that Yippee
Yippee Kaye.
I did not
86.
butcher that.
Yippee Kaye.
Shout out to you with the $9.99 super sticker. I appreciate it. Also, okay, let's see. Let's see. Machismo TV with the 5. It says passport videos are for men. Why are you letting her spread anti-black woman propaganda and slander Holleman? She was sharing her opinion, but I think you've been here long, and if you've seen, there's been plenty of pushback. Shout out to, is it Andre and Andrea? Because she has an opinion doesn't mean that she's pressed about it. And then another one, it says women in the States assume that women in other countries are helpless. Oh, I think I read that one already. Yeah, I read that one already. I think I got all of them. I want to make sure. If I missed anyone, guys, let me know in the comments. Oh, no, it was a Mr. G's World. It says, many women in the community have voiced concerns on our image, but some call you hater. People have to stop chasing clout, including the Brazilian feminist. Yeah. Just the image of, I mean, the black, just black people in general, but especially Black women. And this is actually a question I want to pose to the panel real quick, and then I will have to wrap this up because I actually need to get finished with dinner.
Can I? When you're done, can I respond back to the brother whenever you finish?
Okay, yeah. Real quick. Well, actually, no. You can respond, and then I'll ask the question because that kind of may deter the conversation. So you can respond, then I'll ask my question, and then wrap it up.
Okay, sure. Brother, I want to just say congratulations to you for being a world traveler and being a Black man who travels. And I want to say to you that you are not a passport bro to me. Passport Bro, the brand, this thing that's happened in the past 2 years, is something being branded under, for the most part, Austen Holleman. You are very correct in saying that all Black men are not the same. You have Black expats. I happen to be a Black expat. You have Black traveling gentlemen. They are not passport bros. These are men like yourself who travel all around the world and they handle their business. And I wish that you and any Black man who has dignity and pride and is looking for a wife of any color in this world, find the happiness you want. There is no hate on that. Black men do not belong to Black women, period, point blank, full stop. So I just wanted to say that to you. And I'm absolutely not hating on you or anybody else. I'm just saying that this passport bros that are putting Black women down, most of them have failed horribly with all women in the United States.
I just want to.
That's why they're over there the past 2 years.
I just wanted to respond simply by just saying this. A lot of the same guys, the passport bros that you say are all somewhat, terrible men, and the traveling guys are all Black men. We have watched No Scrubs. We've watched Bills. We've watched Oprah, and now here we are with the Black community, or should I say Black women, about to make Tyler Perry a billionaire. Now, Tyler Perry movies are getting flown all around the world, and they're showing this. Are those movies showing Black men in a proper light? They are not.
No.
But there's no backlash about this soon-to-be billionaire. But a couple of guys on the internet talking about Black women and their experiences, we got to shut that down. But we're going to glorify a man that wears a dress for a living. Look, you got to miss me with that, Miss Lady. I'm sorry. I'm not even trying to be mean to you. I'm just saying you're over here worried about a couple of dudes on the side of the internet when one of the, maybe the biggest film director in Black America wears a dress, walks around talking in a woman's voice, and makes movies basically disparaging Black men for not being strong enough. And he's getting rich for it. And to come on this side
you're going to
internet,
have to take that up with the Jewish community, sir. Take that up with the Jewish community.
Hey, look, the Jewish community wouldn't be making any money if Black women weren't going to go watch the movies. But they're going to watch them, right? Am I right or wrong?
You got to take that up with the Jewish community.
Are Black women going to see the
movies? Let's stay on topic here, people.
My point is, if we're going to get on some guys on one side of the internet, come on, you're going to have to regulate behavior on both sides. So if guys and people are getting rich off of disparaging the name of Black men, go after them. There's big channels out there, plenty of them.
So
on their panels, call them. Yeah.
I just want to jump in real quick. Hey, Shay. What's up? It's Marty on the panel. Let's have a Marty moment for a second. Now, I'm not going to regale the woman May with my adventures, my accomplishments. I'm just keep it focused. And I'll say, like, just to hit one thing, like Austen wasn't appointed the leader of anything. We didn't have like a backdoor meeting, Illuminati style, and lifted him above and said, you are the one. No, the way it works is YouTube has algorithm and they show your material to a bunch of people, and he just happened to ride the wave. So he doesn't speak for guys who own passports no more than Cardi B speaks for you when she goes to see the President Biden. I'm sure you guys remember that. So by which I'm saying is this: what I say to women and men, the cream always rises to the top, because I don't want to make this a you versus me, He-Man versus Skeletor, Decepticons versus Autobots. We're not doing that tonight. The best rises to the top. And on each side, I say, okay, Black women, I hear your concerns. I think about it at night sometimes. So this is what I say. Date out. And I don't mean interracial even. We don't even have to go there. There's African men, there's Caribbean men. But here's the thing. Let's just say, because I like to agree more than I like to disagree. So when women tell me Black men don't lead, Black men aren't tall enough, Black men aren't cute enough, you're scoundrels, you know what I do? You're right. So that would mean I agree on everything you said. So when I say to women, I say, well, why is it no other men come into your community, overstep their own women in their communities, in their countries, fly in to date and marry you? Oh, now we have a problem, because now we have a situation that we can't argue because I just agree with you. Let's just say all the Black men ain't worth nothing. That would mean other men should be coming in, scooping you up, because if you're strong and independent, and if these things count for relationships, that means the Arab man, the Puerto Rican, the Dominican man, the Haitian man, would value these things and say, oh, I've got gold. When you find $100 bill on the ground, even if you have to dust it off, it's still worth $100, right? So if nobody's dusting off that $100 bill, could be it's not worth as much as you think. Now, if we're going to address the men, the same thing applies, because I'm not versus. Dusty dudes will be left in the dust. And it is your fault if you don't rise to the occasion. If you don't put in the work to become the man that you should be to obtain the type of woman that you want, that's your fault. So this is not a woman versus man thing. I just tell people the facts and lay it at their feet where it lays. So when the women say you Black men are this, you're bashing me, I agree. Yes, stop bashing those women. They'll be married before you know it. And if they're not married, that's their fault. Same thing with the men. All these women are overweight. I can't get a good. Okay. Well, how much do you make? Are you clean? Are you in the gym? Are you doing what you have to do to get to the next level? If not, sucks for you too. And I think if we had this attitude where it's like, look, man, date out. And I don't mean interracial. I'm not talking about white. Let me say it again. If you are really that good and you are in demand, okay, say the Black men in America don't work for you, the Black women don't work for you. That means if you go somewhere else, it should work, right? That means there's a dysfunction with us getting together. And I'm not here to argue why. I don't care what led you down this path. I don't care why you're fat. I don't care why you're not, well, the women will say emotionally intelligent as far as the males. I don't deal with excuses. I deal with results, because a lot of people, they say, I've been engaged 10 times. And you know what I say? I say, it don't matter if you went to the finals. Did you get the Super Bowl ring? Huh?
Bam, bam.
You see what I'm saying? Do
Bam.
you follow me? So this is why I deal with a lot of women, because I do a lot of film, photography, and music. So I'm very accomplished. I know how this goes. So I know how to speak, walk the walk, and talk the talk.
I appreciate the Marty moment. I want to say that I appreciate it.
But like I said, I'm not here to go against you and bash you. I speak to both sides, and I get heat on both sides. Guys that know me, some people hate me, men and women, because I make everybody go to that next level. But what I don't do, I don't give anybody room for excuses, male or female. If you have a problem and you are really the shit, you should be able to go somewhere else and get the results. And if you're not getting it here, Go somewhere else. This whole thing where we have to fight each other, because here's the thing. Men travel, women travel, but people don't realize women have more passports and travel more than men.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, they do. This is a fact. We know this. And women have an infrastructure for sex tourism. It's called hedonism. It's called the boat rides. I know these things because I've been to some of them. I see I'm the guy in the corner with the camera. Click, click.
Right.
You see
right.
what I'm saying?
I've seen it too. I've seen it.
It's not about who's doing what. It's not about how you say. It's about who's listening. You see what I'm saying? So what I'm saying to everybody, I don't get into the war of the worlds and grandstanding. I'm about results. And if I can show guys, hey, if you do this domestically or internationally, I can get you these results. Follow what I'm showing you. Same thing for the females. If the female tells me I'm in shape, I've got a great attitude, I can cook in the kitchen, and these men aren't doing it for me, then cool. Go where you are celebrated. Ain't nobody gonna be hating you over here. You know, but what you can't do, as I'm gonna hit both sides real quick. As a female, you can't be overweight. You can't have kids. You can't have a bad attitude. You can't not know how to cook, spin the block and say, I demand this, this, and this. And then when you don't get the results, now it's everybody. It's society's fault. Same thing with the guys. You can't say, oh, the white man's be holding me down. Jews buy all the property. I can't get ahead because of XYZ. No, there's things you can do to get ahead. And if you don't make it happen by a certain age, because there's a time limit on men to become successful too. We hit the wall at a certain time. It's later in life, but the results are way more devastating than women because we don't have the fail-safe. So if you don't hit your stride by a certain age as a man, you're in trouble and there's nobody to save you. I make that very clear. So all I'm saying is, look, there's problems on both sides. I'll do a Trump. They're both good people on both sides. You know what I'm saying? So, I'll do that. Look, you know what I'm saying? So listen, if you doing the work, you will have what you deserve. And it's just that simple.
Right.
I
so
agree.
Yeah, good point. So I'm going to pose this final question and you guys can answer and then I'll have to wrap it up. We need to finish up dinner. So, you know, kind of alluding to one of the comments that was said earlier, and I mentioned this before, the image I think of the Black woman in general is just been so demolished, so destroyed. And you know, Black men are impacted too. And I always wonder when Black men do go abroad and they are, you know, either trying to integrate into another culture or just trying to move around in a different culture, if they are perceived that way, especially based upon like the negative image that Black American women have. Like if the negative image of the Black American woman impacts how they are going to be treated and perceived in other countries. I don't know if any man who's done that, Kevin C maybe or whatever, if you want to speak to that, or Passport OG or any of you guys. Just curious.
If you're in small groups, not that much. And I'm older, so I don't. You know, when you're older, they give you get a lot more latitude. You know, you get the Mr., Sir, and everybody treats you with the respect and the dignity that you give to them. Now, if they're looking at you with suspicion if you're younger, because they're just not sure about you just yet.
Okay.
If you're like, you know, 35 and, you know, 40 and above, where I am, they're like, oh, okay, well, you're an older guy. We got you covered. You know how to behave. So that's the end. That's pretty much how that works.
I think it's going to vary based off of where you're traveling to, and honestly, how you're dressed a lot of times as well. Every culture, in all reality, is not just fully accepting of American culture, because I think far too many of us as Americans, we travel to these other countries and we overstep our boundaries, and it's like we step into someone's house and we don't take our shoes off, in an essence. So far too many of us go with this Americanized mindset, and we end up getting the outcome as an Austen Holleman, for example. We think that these people don't view respect in a high regard. Like, for example, when I went to Thailand, they don't mess around over there. You go over there with some foolishness, they will lock you up immediately. And the way that they work with their king, if you say something negative about their king, they will automatically throw you in prison immediately. So I think that far too many people see YouTube videos and they take it and run with it based off of someone having really good editing skills or having a very biased topic that they're speaking to some of these people about in these other countries. What I did notice that I can say, though, is that America is being watched by everybody around the world.
Yeah,
everybody watches everything that we do. And I had a conversation with a woman in Thailand, and when I was speaking to her, I didn't want to say the whole that it was Black American culture that everyone wanted to be a part of, but I was talking to her and I was like, yeah, you all love American culture, because I could see that she had Jordans on and she was listening to some rap music. And she was like, no, it's not American culture, it's Black culture that we like. And I was just like, wow, that opened my eyes up to show me that literally these people in these other countries watch every single thing we do, good or bad. So that brings up another point for me. When it comes down to it, I think a lot of these men in America, Black, white, and every color in between, what they fail to understand is that a lot of the problems that you may face dating in America with the women here, you will face the same problems in these other countries if you have a mindset of a person that is going to be thinking about potentially tricking, or if you think that you're going to be able to escape from whatever reality is. People are people. Women are women, men are men. So women, regardless of what part of the world they're in, are going to be more alike than they are different. Not necessarily the negative side of things, but just in general. Men are more alike regardless of where we are, and women are more alike regardless of where we are. That's all I got to say.
Gotcha. I think it depends. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's fine. You can go.
I've been traveling a little bit. I've been to Mexico, the Bahamas, Panama. Most recently was Mexico about 5 years ago. And I think it kind of depends, like what Kevin said, one, where you're at and where those people are. Because for the most part, everybody was really friendly, really outgoing. And granted, I didn't really live there. I only went for like a week as a tourist each place. But every now and then, when you go to certain more upscale districts or places, you notice kind of some of the things you see back in the States. Like I remember we were looking for some alcohol because we were going to party that night, and the dude's looking at us like trying to show us malt liquor. So it's little stuff you kind of I picked up on, at least in Mexico and Panama. But I think it's kind of like what Kevin says, like they're aware, they're watching, and some of those stereotypes and things they transcend our borders.
I did have one quick question for May. She said about 70% of Black women don't want to be married. How did you get to that? And we know that, but because the numbers bear that out. But how did you get to that assessment?
I'm looking at. I used to be a high school teacher, and I'm looking at some of these younger kids that I have taught, and it's like the younger generation. None of them, male or female, are interested in marriage at all. They don't see the point, but they do admit they want children, but they don't think that marriage is part of that. So between, I would say, the older generation Z, the millennials, who are probably at about 80%, and I'm part of Generation X, we're probably about 60% that don't want to get married. My brain is thinking 70% of those who are in marriageable age, particularly females, do not want to be married. That's my guess.
So there you go. So that's why we don't have. So that's actually one reason there's not a community, because community is actually men, women, and children together, strong families, and you build from there. So if 70% of them don't want to do that, then we don't need to hear the complaints about no provisioning, no protection, nobody's looking out for you, and there's no building. Men build for wives and family. They're not going to do it for a loose confederation of women and children. It ain't going to happen.
I agree, and I think that's why it is important for male and female who are actually who are actually marriage material, because a lot of people, especially a lot of women, I'm a wife, so I know a lot of women are claiming to be marriage material, but they don't know how to act, they don't know how to dress, they don't know how to move. And I don't like the word submission, but I think that there's something called order. There's something called order, and a lot of women don't get it. So I feel you, brother. It's frustrating. That's why I used to be a pro-Black, like extremely pro-Black. But when I look at this Black community, it's no way. The brothers are gonna have to date who's ready to get married, whatever color they are at this point. That's what I think. But I appreciate your opinion. And,
okay.
Thanks for answering that. I want to say, as a solo traveler, and an international traveler for the last 20 years, a female solo traveler, I have to say this. A passport comes with a lot of responsibility. Please respect your passport. It is to be held dear to your heart. Let it guide your movements, and walk lightly in other people's territory and enjoy the ride. That's all I wanted to say.
All right. Well, thank you, May, for calling in. It's been good. And I'm trying to think. So, guys, I'm gonna have to wrap this up. I do want to acknowledge I just see some more super chats come through. I see Tony Robertson with the 20. It says, "Keep doing what you're doing, Shay. Great discussion. Thank you so much for the love. I appreciate it. Thank you all you guys who come through. This has been fun. I know this whole topic has been, it's just been all over at least the Black social media sphere. And like I said, it's so funny because we're talking about men that supposedly women don't care about, you know? So I always go back to that. But there was another super chat too that I saw. Oh, it was with AJ. Shout out to you also with the 20. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you guys so much. And you guys in the panel, do you have any final words? Anything you could add to some of the previous points made, or y'all let me know?
Well, I'll say this and I'll get off. Because first of all, make sure when you get off, you tell your husband, thank you for letting you play outside with us all late all night.
I'll let him know.
But you're talking about like how people view Black women and all of that, right? And to be honest with you, there's a very small group of people that are looking for it. Like, let me give you an example. So I don't know if you guys know who Twice is, but Twice is 20 times more popular than Cardi B here. Blackpink, nobody's listening to Cardi B over here. Nobody's listening to Meg Thee Stallion. Like, people that listen to Meg Thee Stallion are people that are going out and seeking it. Like the pop, even entertainment is just not as American centric as it used to be. And so you have these pop groups with these slender, really hip hop dancing type chicks, and then one of them gets married, and it's a big deal. And she leads the group, and they recast her, and like that's like kind of the way they do quote unquote hip hop here. And so, like, you know, looking out for these like this pregnancy, I don't know, the debauchery that we see in America. The only people that are really paying attention to that are people really, really interested in like American culture. And that's, I'll be honest with you, I think that the group of people that are paying attention to that is getting smaller each day. I really do. I just don't think that American culture is it as much as it used to be.
Yeah, so, I wouldn't be, well, because, you know, it is, and that's a whole nother discussion, but it is declining in a lot of different ways. You know, there's different economists and things that have talked about that, just how the empire itself is declining economically, and you're seeing that with inflation and just all these different things. That's a whole different topic of discussion. But of course, that's going to impact the way that we rank in the global scale, and, you know, the attention that we get. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see the next year.
Yeah. Tell your husband thanks for letting you play outside when the lights came on for us.
Yeah. All good. Okay, guys. So any other final thoughts before I wrap this up?
The only thing I wanted to add was just, and thank you for your input, Marty. You definitely gave some good information. I think everybody else did as well.
Thank you.
I think that far too many people don't understand that whatever it is that you want out of life, you can get whatever it is that you want based off you putting the work in and deciding to make a choice. Because we all have that choice, and we all get an opportunity in life. Some of us take it, some of us seize the moment, and others don't. Don't make an excuse for failure, because a perfect example of someone who achieved great things from a humble beginning is Michael Jordan. He got kicked off the team. He didn't make the team, I think, his first year. And he ended up being the greatest basketball player of all time. So when it comes down to it, people who aren't in a position to make a lot of money are in that position because of themselves, because their own self-limiting beliefs. That's my last thing I wanted to say. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. My bad.
No, go ahead, Marty. You're good.
Yeah. I just wanted to say thank you for having me up on the stream. Hopefully I can come back again.
Yeah.
I forgot the brother on the bottom left. I forgot your name.
My name is Joseph.
Joseph. Good stuff you're doing out there, Joseph, with the bullion, the gold bullion. Yeah, and I think if people just have the attitude of there should be no losers inside your circle. So there should be nothing to complain about in terms of what someone else isn't doing, because you should be attracting like attracts like, if that makes sense. So everyone in your circles should be on your same wavelength. So I don't really understand when men or women complain, oh, these people over here. Well, you shouldn't be talking to those people over there anyway. They're not. If you're operating at this high level, you should only be looking for people like that. Everybody else should be invisible. You know. So thanks for having me on. I'll leave the plane right there, and we'll be back.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Yeah, my concern with this whole passport thing is just young men who aren't as experienced in life just yet, who are learning that experience, but they learn hard lessons along the way. This is a hard lesson for Mr. Holleman. But the thing is that the only good thing is that he didn't end up in prison, in foreign prison. He didn't end up losing his life, because that could happen out here. And that was one of my concerns when I was talking to him and other young men about it. So, and I know he's going to get a lot of advice. He's getting he's slamming a lot of advice right now. So hopefully he'll adjust his content. And then on top of that, he'll keep doing his thing, but be moving a much smarter way, and listen to the guys who have been out here doing it for a while, the 20-year, 30, 40-year guys, and these older gentlemen who know how to move essentially in silence, but actually do something constructive and positive. And I say that your life, as far as a man, is about personal improvement and self-development. And you're going to meet, and you're doing those two things properly, you'll meet a nice little woman along the way who will want to actually, be that great wife and mother that you're looking for. It'll all come if you do the work. So Thanks for letting me say. Thanks for these conversations. Yeah, we appreciate what it is you do, and you lending a voice to, the men in your platform. We appreciate you. You take care.
Thank you so much.
I was going to say thank you for having me up, Ms. Shay. My only final thought is just I don't see why it's so hard for certain people to render certain due respect for one individual to another. Mm-hmm. I think really that's what the whole problem boils down to. There's a lot of people out there that don't respect one another and still expect others to respect them.
Yeah, no, I understand. There's definitely some double standard, but this is why I like having these kind of conversations, so we can kind of look at it from both sides, or at least that's what I try to do, is look at it from both sides. And I do think in this situation, largely, there's a lot of unwillingness to try to empathize with men or understand what they're going through. There's just a lot of reacting, and there's a lot of blaming and fear mongering. But if the issue was not addressed, then at the end of the day, the men are going to continue to do what they're going to do, and eventually somebody's going to have to learn, or lose out. I don't know how else to put it. So
yeah, I completely 100% agree. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all in Ephesians 5, like where detailed submission and everything. In order for a man to operate optimally in a relationship, he needs that.
Mm-hmm. No, absolutely. And that's a whole other topic. I know it's funny. That would have to be another conversation. I know May said she didn't like the word submission. I don't see a problem with it. I know it's gotten a bad rap. I see no problem with it. I just think women have to be wise with who they're submitting to, for sure. They shouldn't just be falling around and nobody who's beating them and has nothing going on for them. And far too often that happens, I think, when it comes to this topic of submission. You submit to the wrong guy, you get hurt, you get abused, you get misused, and then now submission is bad. And it's like, no, it's not that the concept is bad. The concept is actually quite healthy. It just needs to be applied in context. So
100%. Yeah.
All right. Well, anyways, thanks for calling in. Thanks for the support. And we'll talk soon, I'm sure.
All right. Hope you have a great night. Take care.
All right, guys, this is fun. I started cammed up and then ended up having to transition to the kitchen, which is why I'm about to end this thing, guys. But this has been fun. I'm sure this topic will continue to be a topic of discussion. If not for the last few days, the next couple of weeks or months, we'll see. But either way, I support people doing what's best for them. I say, grab your passports, men, if that's what you think is the best for you. And ladies, if you're a good woman, then this will not impact you. And if you're doing the right things and try to work on yourself personally, work in your own development as a woman, being a good woman, all the things associated with that, then you will have no problem finding a good man. And you can be happy for those who do decide to find love abroad. But either way, I see no issue. I think in general, it's important to try to be more balanced with these discussions. And instead of just going into the reacting and the blaming and pointing fingers and labeling all men as bad or all Black men as bad or whatever, it's just like, let's just take a little bit of accountability. And if the reality is that we are, as a collective, are being won over by these, what is it? These, what do they call it? These dirt foot women or whatever, like that disparaging term. Like if we're being won over by women who supposedly are living in huts and squalor, then what does that say about what we have to offer? And I think those are the kinds of questions that we need to unpack instead of judging, instead of shaming these men. If these men feel like it's better for them to go to a shanty town and get a girl who is by these speculations living in dirt and, with nothing to offer. If that's what these guys are saying is a better option than dealing with a woman in the West, then we have to ask ourselves what's gone on. Why do these men feel so disgusted by what's going on here? And is there something that can be done to address it? So those are my thoughts. Anyways, it was good. It was good having you on. Also, Edward Anderson, always good to hear you talk. Let me see. One thing that never gets stated is Black men are not bashful women, but what is going on is Black men are telling the truth about what's going on in the Black community or has been so boldly done. I do agree with that, Edward Anderson. I do agree that I think sometimes I think just any ounce of criticism can be seen as bashing. So there's that. Also, too, it's, there's a mixed bag because there are guys out here, obviously, who, and I think the majority is where it's just like, look, there's some issues out here. It's bad. We got to go explore your options. But, there are those little moments out here and there, like any movement, where you have people who I think are just trying to hide behind this movement to either hide behind their own self-hating ideas, whether it's, look, because you got some dudes who got this no money crisis. And instead of just saying, look, I just flat out like white women, like I don't like the way Black women look, they have to go and hide behind this movement and try to find reasons to bash Black women. Like, so I do think there's some bad actors out there, but I think the overall movement, that's not the case. And I think overall there's some legitimate concerns being made. And look, even if you think that what some of these men are saying are disrespectful and it is bashing men, even if you think that's the case, okay, granted, fine. Let's have that same energy for when women do it. That's my main thing. I don't like seeing Black women being bashed just for the sake of them being Black. Now, if they're doing some buffoonery, then they need to be called out. That's one thing. If they're acting a fool and if they're making themselves look shameful, then that needs to be called out. But just hating on Black people, I'm not for that. But at the same time, we got to be consistent with the men. Okay, we got to respect the men just the same way. Because if that doesn't happen, then some of these men are going to feel justified. They're going to feel justified in shaming you, in insulting you, and doing all the things that you say you hate. Because it's been done to them for so long. And I'm not saying it's right, but it's like you kind of reap what you sow. And that's, I think, kind of what's going on right now. So anyways, it's a whole nother topic to a certain point, but this has been good. And yeah, guys, stay tuned for other stuff. If you haven't already, hit the like, subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you are notified each time I go live. And thank you so much for hanging out. Thank you for the support. And we'll talk later, okay? Bye.